Marvel, Spider-Man? No, I'm Superman. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51. Your villagers shared nuclear fusion with you. At that moment, Dr. Otto gazed at the arc reactor in his hands, feeling a mixture of excitement at having fulfilled his ultimate dream and a tinge of regret that he hadn't done it himself. Can you tell me whose masterpiece this is? Dr. Otto wanted to know who had fulfilled his lifelong wish. Tony Stark. What? That playboy? Dr. Otto's eyes widened in astonishment. He certainly knew the renowned Tony Stark. Well, then he's truly a genius, surpassing Einstein. While he felt somewhat contempt for the actions of Tony, a playboy and arms dealer, he couldn't help but admire his genius. With such convenient, clean energy already available, why did you bring me here? Dr. Otto was deeply puzzled. While the arc reactor before him might be less efficient than his own research, it was convenient, clean, and there was no need to worry about radiation leaks. It was the very ideal of clean, portable energy. Dr. Otto, don't be so self-deprecating. I brought you here because I'm impressed by your research. Although the arc reactor is convenient and clean, it has a fatal flaw. Never mind. That's none of your business. Now, let's discuss in detail how to make your experiment truly successful. In short, what Peter needed right now wasn't a convenient and clean arc reactor, but an artificial sun, akin to a star. So, in your previous experiments, you considered all possible factors that could cause failure: radiation, harmful rays, energy leakage, and possible gravitational effects, and yet it still failed. As Dr. Otto explained his experimental theory and process, the talented scientists present quickly grasped the idea. So, the failure must be due to the insufficient strength of the protective material, Reed said, first offering his own analysis. Yes, in my opinion, it's the material itself. Otto looked at Reed with surprise, having never expected this unknown individual to be so brilliant. Although it's only a small artificial sun, the intense heat and radiation it emits are too much for ordinary materials to withstand. Furthermore, it will even induce a powerful gravitational effect, unless someone develops a sufficiently strong superconductor, one that can function even at ultra-high temperatures. This artificial sun experiment is simply uncontrollable. Korean-American scientist Zhao Hailin, present at the event, also offered her opinion. Room temperature superconductivity itself has been a problem for decades, let alone a superconductor that can function normally in such a harsh environment. Finding a material is practically impossible. Everyone present knew this was a near impossible scientific challenge. Was my experimental theory a failure from the very beginning? At that moment, even Dr. Otto couldn't help but wonder if the experiment he had been working on for half his life had been wrong from the start. No, Dr. Otto, you are a true genius. Your experimental theory is not wrong. It's just that the development of material science has limited the possibility of completing your experiment. No one present underestimated Dr. Otto's vision and theory. But, unless we can find a special material that's hard enough and doesn't conduct heat at all, there might still be a chance. You mean, vibranium? Someone slowly suggested a material that met the criteria. Vibranium could certainly work, but unfortunately, all the vibranium in the world combined wouldn't even be enough to complete this experiment. Yes, vibranium is indeed too scarce, someone lamented, lamenting the rarity of this special material. No, I actually know a place with vast vibranium resources. What, Mr. Superman, are you serious? Dr. Otto was undoubtedly the most excited person in the room upon hearing Peter's words. Princess Shuri from Wakanda? Right. Peter didn't answer Dr. Otto, but instead slowly looked at Shuri, who had remained silent. What? Plenty of vibranium in Wakanda? How is that even possible? This news was as unbelievable as if your fellow villagers had shared nuclear fusion technology with you. A few days ago, on the far side of the moon, a place virtually untouched by humans, a small spaceship suddenly appeared and slowly landed. The coordinates are correct, but is there really a high-tech civilization here? Gazing at the desolate lunar surface, a landscape of dust and rock, T'Challa, clad in his special vibranium suit, couldn't help but doubt his father's words. But my father would never lie to me. Ultimately, T'Challa chose to trust his father. The next moment, he slowly withdrew a fluorescent diamond-shaped crystal from his vibranium suit. I hope this thing is useful. Suddenly, As if drawn by some mysterious force, the diamond-shaped crystal began to float up from his hand. What's going on? T'Challa stared at the suddenly floating crystal, his eyes filled with wonder. Suddenly, a figure appeared before Black Panther and grabbed the floating diamond-shaped crystal. Are you from Earth? A strange-looking, pale green-skinned figure slowly asked the wary T'Challa. Yes, I'm from Wakanda. My father is King T'Chaka. He sent me here to find a city. T'Challa's eyes, wary and slightly surprised, stared at the sudden appearance before him. He then slowly introduced himself. Wakanda? It's been ages since humans have come from Earth, but since you possess the token, the figure before him seemed quite puzzled, but after a careful glance at T'Challa, he slowly opened his arms. Then, welcome to Attilan. As the figure moved, the previously empty lunar landscape behind him suddenly shifted. The space before T'Challa slowly warped, a protective shield, like that of Wakanda, slowly opening. The next moment, before T'Challa's astonished eyes, a massive stone gate gradually appeared before him. Through the gate, T'Challa could see an immense city within. Is this the Attilan my father spoke of? Gazing at the vast, stone-like city, which seemed somewhat retro, T'Challa was finally certain that everything his father had said was true. P.S. It's the end of the month, so if you have monthly tickets, please remember to vote. Thank you all. Please keep reading. Chapter 52 The Strongest Crooked-Mouthed Dragon King. Wakanda, Africa. In this territory rarely visited by outsiders, a swift figure once again streaked through the air. Your Majesty, that Superman has returned, because Peter hadn't concealed himself, and because Wakanda possessed relatively advanced satellites and detectors, Peter was spotted almost as soon as he appeared in Wakanda's airspace. Assemble all guards immediately. Upon hearing the captain's report, T'Chaka abruptly rose from his throne. Without hesitation, he headed out of the palace. By the way, have T'Challa notify our most distinguished guest, T'Chaka continued before leaving the palace. Haha, it seems you're prepared this time. Peter floated in the air above Wakanda, his gaze calmly gazing at the Wakandan troops assembling within the protective shield below. Then I'll give you a chance to resist with all your might, so you can understand who's truly in charge on this earth. Peter didn't rush directly into the shield while they were gathering. Instead, he floated in the air, giving them ample time to prepare. After waiting for several full minutes, Peter finally saw the Wakandan army assembled below. The densely packed figures were divided into several columns, seemingly divided into several tribes. At a glance, there were tens of thousands of people. No matter how many ants there are, they can't kill an elephant. Peter looked at the dense crowd without fear. Besides, I'm not an elephant, I'm Godzilla. The next moment, Peter descended without hesitation. With full force, the shield, which could easily withstand missile bombardments, was as fragile as paper before him, easily ripped open by a huge hole. This guy is truly terrifying. Some of the Wakandan guards looked at the figure who had so easily torn through the shield, their eyes filled with disbelief. No matter how powerful the enemy, we, the warriors of Wakanda, will not retreat. Captain Okoye, standing behind the king, spoke courageously, inspiring every Wakandan warrior behind him. What does this fellow want? T'Chaka gazed at the floating figure in the air, his eyes flickering as he pondered Superman's true purpose. Meanwhile, Peter's body completely defied gravity, floating in the air, slowly descending until it finally stopped just a dozen meters from the ground. His pitch-black nano-armor reflected the sun's golden glow, and his bright red cape fluttered behind him, windless. Within the golden lines of his body, liquid energy flowed continuously. An intense sense of oppression filled almost every heart present. Even Wakanda's most elite warriors felt their breath quicken at this moment, as if they had witnessed the arrival of a true god. Haha, King T'Chaka, have you gathered so many people? Is this a welcome ceremony for me? The oppressive figure spoke in a remarkably relaxed tone, looking down at T'Chaka, who was leading the charge below. If you are our friend, then this is a grand ceremony to welcome you. Looking up at the figure in the sky, T'Chaka's gaze was free of any fear as he spoke in a deep voice, his tone imbued with the unique authority of a king. But if you are our enemy, then this will be. Then, T'Chaka's tone grew slightly colder, and all the Wakandan warriors behind him raised their vibranium spears, pointing directly at the figure in the sky. Haha, your confidence right now doesn't come from that guy, does it? Hearing T'Chaka's words, Peter didn't show any anger, but instead raised his gaze slightly and looked into the distance. He saw a wisp of golden energy drifting towards them from afar, moving at an incredible speed, almost instantly reaching the sky above the Wakandan army. It then passed directly over the crowd and floated towards King T'Chaka. The next moment, the golden mist-like energy instantly coalesced into two figures. No, three, though only two were human. The other, a dog, appeared even larger than an ordinary human. One of them was the king's son, T'Challa, dressed in his Black Panther uniform. The other, also clad in black, was fondly petting the enormous dog. "Welcome, my friend," King T'Chaka greeted the newcomer warmly. He received no response, but instead placed his hand over his chest in a polite gesture. Then, the figure slowly turned his gaze, gazing at Peter in the air. "Mr. Superman, while you are immensely powerful, Black Bolt, the leader of the Inhumans, possesses equally immense strength. He can destroy anything with a single word, so, I hope you will return my daughter to me now, so that we can still be friends." Seeing Black Bolt's arrival, the old king seemed to regain his confidence, speaking solemnly as he gazed up at Peter in the air. At the same time, Black Bolt, standing beside him, curled his lips into a confident smile. "What mouth?" Peter, staring at Black Bolt's unnaturally confident smile, like that of a crooked-mouthed dragon king, felt like responding to him in some underworld scene. Unfortunately, Peter wasn't yet powerful enough to alter reality at will. However, the next moment, Peter's figure slowly landed on the ground and slowly walked towards the old king and his men. "Your daughter, I need her to help me with something, so I can't return her for now, but I want to see how a mute can stop me." "Back off." Watching Peter approach, Black Bolt slowly opened his mouth with a look of helplessness. Buzz! The next moment, a powerful breath burst forth from his mouth, instantly enveloping Peter. The powerful pseudo-sound waves easily destroyed the ground behind Peter, forming a vast chasm that stretched as far as the eye could see. "Why didn't you get out of the way?" Seeing Peter make no move to evade, Black Bolt's face lit up with surprise. "Because I'm not afraid." Powerful sonic waves surged around Peter, yet they couldn't penetrate his steely body, seemingly unable to even stop him. How is this possible? Black Bolt felt a wave of disbelief as his own destructive sonic waves failed to inflict the slightest harm on Peter, unable even to halt his advance. "I have to admit, you're quite boastful," he said, slowly approaching Black Bolt. As Black Bolt stared in shock, he raised his hand, blocking Peter's mouth from spewing sonic waves. He then grasped his jaw and slowly lifted him up. "Too bad, it won't work on me." Then, with a gentle push, he flung Peter away. Seeing its master in danger, the large dog suddenly transformed into a stream of golden energy, rapidly drifting off into the distance. "No, you hypocritical creature, where did you take my sister?" At that moment, the nearby Black Panther couldn't help himself, baring its sharp claws and lunging at Peter. The next moment, two crimson rays flashed, and Black Panther was sent flying at breakneck speed, disrupting the entire Wakandan army formation behind him. "So, can we talk now?" Peter said gravely, his eyes gleaming a terrifying crimson light as he slowly turned to the old king. Chapter 53 The sun's radiance will illuminate the night sky. Then, after some friendly nuclear talks, Peter successfully evacuated the first batch of raw vibranium ore from Wakanda. Well, it wasn't much, just a few dozen tons, less than 100. "Father, are we just going to let him go so easily?" My sister, watching the figure rapidly flying away, carrying a small mountain of vibranium, T'Challa's eyes were filled with resentment. "T'Challa, for the safety of Wakanda, we have no choice." The old king naturally didn't want so much vibranium to fall into outside hands. But not long ago, they had all truly experienced Superman's power. Even their most powerful ally, Black Bolt, the leader of the Inhumans, couldn't harm him in the slightest. Black Bolt's sonic blasts were so powerful they could destroy vibranium, yet they couldn't harm his steel body at all. Perhaps only a true god could stand up to such a powerful being. No, the last self-proclaimed god of thunder had been easily defeated by him, even his hammer shattered. Besides, he just said your sister is fine, she just needs to do something for him. At this moment, the old king's expression was hard to tell whether he was happy or sad. He gazed at the distant sky, where the figure had completely disappeared. After a long pause, he finally said slowly, "If we can become partners with him, or even friends." The old king paused, then continued, "Then it would be possible to fulfill the dream of our Wakanda kings for generations, reveal Wakanda's strength and prosperity to the world. And there's no need to fear that doing so will bring war to Wakanda." Wakanda's growth from a backward farming tribe to its current technologically advanced nation was entirely due to its abundant underground vibranium resources. Yet, this very abundance of vibranium forced Wakanda to hide, to avoid becoming the target of global plunder and bringing war to its people. At this moment, the old king seemed to have finally found a way to open Wakanda to the world while still ensuring its peace. "Father, do you really want to do this?" T'Challa's face flickered with worry. "No, you will lead Wakanda to true prosperity. Let the world know the true power of Wakanda." The old king retracted his gaze, looking at his outstanding son with hope. Meanwhile, despite carrying tens, even hundreds of tons of raw vibranium ore in one hand and even a small sonic device specifically used by Wakanda to passivate and purify it in the other, Peter's pace didn't slow down much. Wherever he passed, some people felt the sky suddenly darken, as if a plane were flying overhead, but the moment they looked up, Peter, carrying the vibranium, had disappeared into the horizon. Soon, Peter returned to the Antarctic research base. After using thermal vision to enlarge the opening above the ice cave to accommodate the vibranium ore, Peter slowly opened the metal door above the base. He's finally back. By then, the scientists had been waiting below for a long time. They were eager to know if what Peter said was true. Vibranium is an extremely precious resource. Some of them may never even have the chance to see it in their entire lives. However, as the metal door above opened, their faces froze at the sight before them. So, this is what he meant by bringing back a few 100 million vibranium. Seeing Peter holding a mountain of vibranium ore in one hand, everyone present, save Shuri, was stunned. Boom. A dull yet resounding sound finally awoke everyone from their daze. Mr. Superman, this. Otto excitedly gazed at the massive vibranium ore before him, which practically filled the entire cave, completely unsure of what to say. 1 gram of vibranium is worth over $10,000, and it's priceless. There's probably dozens of tons here now. Even the raw ore still needs to be refined, but judging by its purity, after purification, there should be over 10 tons of vibranium left. Just how much is that worth? The others were no better off than Dr. Otto. A rough calculation revealed that they likely wouldn't earn that much in their lifetime. Don't just stand there, Princess Shuri. You should be familiar with this device. Teach them. I hope to see the outer protective system of the artificial sun made of vibranium as soon as possible. Peter interrupted the crowd's money-grubbing gazes, slowly placed a huge box on the ground, and spoke to Shuri. Without stopping, he soared into the sky and left. Ahem, Princess Shuri, are you still in need of high-level talent in Wakanda? I want to immigrate. Peter's words awakened the stunned scientists present, and everyone looked at Shuri as if they were looking at a wealthy nouveau riche. Soon, more than 10 days passed. Once again, a swiftly flying figure streaked across the Antarctic sky. It seems they have indeed completed what I instructed them to do. Entering the ice cave, Peter saw that the once mountainous vibranium ore was now only a small portion left. Most of it had probably been passivated and purified, turning into real vibranium. Peter didn't linger long, turning and slowly heading towards the laboratory. With a vibranium-made protective device and the new shield solution provided by Princess Shuri, I think this artificial sun experiment won't fail again, Peter heard an excited voice as he entered the lab. I hear you already. Slowly entering the lab, Peter immediately spotted a massive silver spherical device in the center, nearly 2 meters tall, with 5 metal arms resembling human fingers, pointing upward in a virtual grip. Mr. Superman, you're here, Dr. Otto excitedly greeted Peter. He knew full well that this moment, this opportunity to fulfill his dream, was entirely thanks to Peter. It seems you've improved this device. Peter had been present during Dr. Otto's last experiment, and he remembered it had only 4 finger-like metal arms. Now, however, it had 5, appearing more stable and compact. Yes, after discussion, we've made some improvements based on Dr. Otto's original design, Reed said, addressing Peter's concerns. Furthermore, the energy shield has also been improved this time, using a design provided by Princess Shuri. Reed glanced at Shuri beside him. Ever since learning that Shuri's family owned a vibranium mine, she'd instantly become the object of adulation for nearly everyone present. After all, no one knew whether they'd need vibranium to fuel their scientific research in the future. So, Dr. Otto, are you confident enough to complete this artificial sun experiment? Peter turned to Dr. Otto, who looked brimming with excitement. Of course, I absolutely won't fail this time. Upon hearing the question, Dr. Otto's excited expression turned serious, but in a split second, He regained his composure and answered without hesitation. "Well, since you're so confident," Peter paused, then continued slowly. "Then I'll let you truly realize your dream, in the full sight of the entire world, in a few days. The sun's radiance will illuminate the entire New York night sky. P.S. Please give me your monthly votes, your recommendations, and your continued reading. Thank you all." Chapter 54 The Real Attention. In Tony Stark's villa's basement laboratory, Jarvis, prepare for the 12th experiment. Record the relevant data. Tony, clad in red and gold metallic armor, slowly addressed Jarvis. Ling. A golden mask slammed over Tony's face. The next moment, the armor began to flow like liquid, constantly transforming into different forms. Nano-energy cannons, nano-metal shields, nano-metal swords, and other weapons, both hot and cold, condensed from nanoparticles, rapidly transformed. "Sir, there's nothing unusual about the nanoparticle transformation algorithm. The nanostructure is extremely stable, and the transformation interval has been reduced to under 5 milliseconds. You're truly a genius." As the nano-armor continued to transform, Jarvis flattered Tony with his high emotional intelligence. 5 milliseconds? It's not quite the limit, but it's probably going to be hard to break through again. Tony frowned slightly, but he finally understood that this time had been reduced to the limit. "Jarvis, prepare to begin testing the new weapons system." As Tony finished speaking, the nanoparticles on his armor rapidly transforming in the blink of an eye into a bizarrely shaped, yet dangerous, energy cannon. A faint red energy swirled from the muzzle, like a captivating eye. "Concentrate energy." With a command from Tony, an intense red light instantly emanated from the muzzle. The red energy swirled within, as if brewing ever greater power, and the glow grew increasingly dazzling. Finally, when the entire basement was almost completely filled with the intense red light, the energy cannon seemed to have reached its limit. Tony then pointed the cannon at a distant, 10-centimeter thick titanium alloy plate. A second later, a brilliant red beam erupted from the muzzle. The terrifying red energy beam instantly pierced the 10-centimeter thick titanium plate, then continued its momentum, piercing through the wall behind him as well. It even pierced the ground surrounding the villa's foundation, piercing a massive hole along the coast. The remaining red energy beam vanished along the sea. "Sir, the red sun energy cannon is functioning normally. Its power is nearly 7 times greater than last time. I wonder if this thing can actually break through that guy's steel body." Despite the terrifying power, Tony's expression seemed to indicate it wasn't enough. "Never mind, let's leave it at that for now. The palladium reactor can only sustain this level of consumption. Even the arc reactor, such a formidable energy source, seemed to Tony to be insufficient at this point. By the way, Jarvis, have you gathered any information on magic?" Tony tapped the arc reactor on his chest. In less than 3 seconds, his nano-armor reverted to nanoparticles and retracted into its nano-storage. "Sir, after screening and eliminating online fabrications, we found thousands of pieces of information that might contain magical information. After further investigation, we've reduced them to 87. We're currently dispatching professionals to investigate. We estimate it will take about 10 days to complete the investigation." "Why is it taking so long?" Tony asked, slowly settling down on the sofa and sipping his red wine. "Because some of the information is from remote areas, like Nepal. It's very difficult to investigate." "Nepal? That's quite far away. By the way, has anything new happened recently? It seems like I haven't seen you all in ages." As soon as Tony returned home, he locked himself in his lab. Pepper Potts, who had been asked to take her leave, declined every visit from friends and investigators who came to visit him or inquire about his whereabouts. Now that his nano-armor was complete and its weapon systems updated, Tony decided to go out and relax. "Sir, there's an activity I think you'd be interested in." "Oh? Jarvis, you've never given me such a definitive answer before." Tony's interest was piqued. As an artificial intelligence, Jarvis rarely used the word definite. A few days ago, nuclear physicist Dr. Otto announced to the world that he had solved humanity's energy crisis, and he plans to complete his experiment in front of all of humanity. A chuckle crossed Tony's face as Jarvis's voice reached him. "Oh? Dr. Otto? Did his last artificial sun experiment fail? I even replicated his process, and without sufficiently strong special materials, it would have been nearly impossible to succeed. So, how can you be sure I am interested?" Tony was puzzled. Jarvis didn't seem to make such a mistake. "Sir, Dr. Otto said that during the experiment, humanity's hero, Superman, would be present. What? That guy too? Tony stood up, not even noticing the red wine spilling from his glass. Time, location, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, on the Hudson River, on the Statue of Liberty Island. Wow, this guy really knows how to choose a location. The next morning, the already bustling area around the Statue of Liberty was even busier. The entire island was filled with people who had arrived early, awaiting the experiment's evening start. Even on the nearby Hudson River, the entire island was tightly encircled by countless boats, circle after circle. Almost every New Yorker who heard the news, and even people from nearby cities, rushed to the scene. This was Superman's first public engagement. It was rumored that the president had even changed his schedule to visit the site of the most anticipated experiment in human history. Countless people from all walks of life, including politicians, businessmen, billionaires, and even the military, had arrived. Armed military personnel were even maintaining order. Countless people and media outlets were focused on the scene. Countless helicopters and military aircraft circled overhead, awaiting the experiment, which would begin in more than a dozen hours. Time passed slowly, and as everyone waited impatiently, the sun finally sank below the horizon in the west. Night fell, but countless lights flickered, instantly illuminating the entire island. It's finally starting. This guy's even more famous than me. On the island, protected by his bodyguard, Happy, Tony sat leisurely on the sofa, sipping red wine while waiting for the experiment to begin. Finally, the final hour wore on. Boom. A powerful sonic boom echoed from the distant sky. Look, it's Superman. He's really here. The next moment, everyone noticed a figure atop the statue. His black battlesuit shone brilliantly even in the darkness, with the golden lines swirling across his form. His cape fluttered in the wind. Superman, humanity's hero. The sight of that all-too-familiar figure instantly erupted in cheers. Countless media outlets focused their cameras on the majestic figure towering over the Statue of Liberty. Experiments that would change humanity's future were never their primary concern. Their sole focus was Superman. What is Superman doing? Amidst countless puzzled gazes, the figure slowly approached the Statue of Liberty. This is incredible. As everyone watched in disbelief, Superman effortlessly lifted the Statue of Liberty with one hand. Then, a strangely shaped aircraft suddenly approached from afar and slowly landed on the statue's raised pedestal. The aircraft's hatch opened, and several figures rolled out a highly anticipated special device, placing it atop the statue's pedestal, replacing the Statue of Liberty's previous position. Although many on the islands couldn't clearly see the preparations taking place above, they knew at that moment that the highly anticipated experiment was finally about to begin. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55: The Brightest Star in the Night Sky. Dear viewers, we meet again. Oh my god, Superman is here today. Wait, that's incredible. He lifted the Statue of Liberty with ease. What's he doing? Oh, I see. Looks like the experiment is about to begin. What kind of incredible experiment could possibly attract Superman to participate in this event? Let's wait and see. At this moment, nearly the entire world's attention was focused on this event. The large screens temporarily erected around the Statue of Liberty's base suddenly lit up, and a strange, somewhat portly figure with four metal tentacles swirling behind it appeared on the screens. It also appeared before the eyes of everyone around the world. Huh? He took a deep breath. Even Dr. Otto couldn't help but feel a little nervous at this moment. He had never imagined that the attention Mr. Superman had promised him would be so overwhelming. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone watching, good evening. Today is a very important moment for me. First of all, I want to thank my wife for her support and unwavering loyalty over the past decade. Dr. Otto spoke, gazing lovingly at his wife, Rose, who was beside him. Secondly, I want to thank Wakanda for its strong support and sponsorship of this experiment, and most importantly, I want to thank Mr. Superman for his immense help. It's fair to say that without Mr. Superman, this crucial experiment that could change the future of humanity wouldn't have happened. As he spoke, Dr. Otto waved his gratitude toward Peter, who was effortlessly lifting the Statue of Liberty in the air. The camera then cut to Peter's figure. Peter, without pretense of aloofness, held the statue, weighing over 200 tons, in one hand, while with the other, he smiled and greeted the camera. Although the bioforce field might have made his smile difficult to discern, the audience couldn't see it clearly. Superman. Superman, but there was no doubt that Peter was a true global superstar at that moment. No wonder someone like Homelander, who could destroy everything, would be afraid of online outcry. This feeling of being so influential is truly bizarre, but I can be Superman or Homelander, but I absolutely cannot let anything hold me back. While enjoying the cheers from the audience, Peter mentally reminded himself that he was neither Superman nor Homelander. Or, he could be both, depending on his mood. Then, everyone, stay tuned and witness this historic moment. The camera returns to Dr. Otto, who announces with a firm face that the experiment will begin immediately. He sets down all the necessary equipment, and the aircraft ascends, hovering overhead. Only Dr. Otto, his wife, and a few essential operators remain on the stage, the center of attention. A moment of silence descends upon the entire venue. Everyone holds their breath, awaiting the moment Dr. Otto has promised, the moment that will change the future and go down in history. Earth, fasten your seatbelts. We're ready to take off. Standing before the new experimental apparatus, nearly twice the size of the previous one, Otto's lips curl into an anticipatory smile. The next moment, a metal tentacle behind him removes a pigeon egg size, multiplied by a millionth of the rare element tritium from a sealed box. With Wakanda's current technology, preparing tritium is no longer a difficult feat. Precisely and steadily, a metal tentacle placed the tritium in the center of the experimental apparatus. Then, without hesitation, Dr. Otto pressed the laser ignition switch. The next moment, the experiment unfolded almost identically to the previous one. However, this time, the audience would not leave, and the experiment would not encounter the unexpected events of the previous time. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Several powerful laser beams bombarded the tritium with precise precision. In an instant, a star-like light burst forth from it. The tritium instantly grew several times larger, almost filling the entire interior of the experimental apparatus. Like a brand new star rising in the distance, its intense light overwhelmed all other lights, instantly illuminating the entire island's night sky. In that moment, as if day and night had been reversed, night suddenly became as bright as day. What's that? Is it the sun? It's so bright, countless people exclaimed, shielding their eyes from the intense light. Haha, thank goodness I was prepared. Someone pulled out their sunglasses and put them on. Could this guy actually succeed this time? What materials did he use? Tony put on the sunglasses Happy had prepared and stared at the star blazing brightly on the big screen, a hint of wonder and curiosity in his eyes. Mr. Osborn, I heard you funded his experiment. Within the military camp, several high-ranking military officials, their shoulders supporting the star, gazed intently at the small star that stood in for the Statue of Liberty, radiating intense light. General, that's true. A flicker of embarrassment crossed Norman Osborn's face, accompanied by a foreboding feeling. I'm sorry, Mr. Osborn, you understand why I say this. The general, who had originally signed a cooperation agreement with Osborn Industries, apologized to Norman, but his face showed no sign of apology. General, please give me another chance. The futuristic weapons we're developing for the military will soon be ready for mass production. A flicker of anger crossed Norman's face, but now he could only lower his posture and plead. Sorry, you should have heard the news by now. Tony Stark has returned, and he's armed with a weapon no one has ever seen. After all, it was the military that unilaterally terminated the cooperation agreement, and the general couldn't help but tell Norman the real reason. Tony Stark, a flicker of hatred flashed across Norman's face. It was that guy again. Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored. Our experiment was a success. As the glittering star blossomed in New York, Dr. Otto exclaimed with immense pride before the world witnessed. It looks like a miniature sun, but it seems unstable. Yes, is it really a success? It won't explode like last time, will it? Fuck, is it too late to run now? I don't want to be surrounded by familiar faces in New York tomorrow. However, at this moment, not only did the people present feel the instability of the miniature sun, which continuously blazed like a solar storm, even the citizens of New York couldn't help but want to flee. After all, this miniature sun looked incredibly unstable. It could explode at any moment, allowing the people of New York to also feel the warmth of the little boy. I know everyone is skeptical about the stability of this miniature sun, which is why I've asked Superman to come. Next, we'll test the stability of this sun in front of everyone in New York, or even the world, Dr. Otto declared with unwavering confidence, as if anticipating this situation. Then, he returned to the aircraft with his wife, other experimenters, and unnecessary experimental equipment. As the aircraft lifted off, a massive shadow suddenly enveloped the nearby crowd. Superman, holding the statue in one hand, landed on the stage. With his other hand, he lifted the miniature sun, still radiating a brilliant light. Then, slowly raising it to the appropriate height, he returned the Statue of Liberty to its original position. "Remember to help me secure it," Peter's voice echoed throughout the crowd. "Also, you might have sleepless nights for the next few nights." With these somewhat puzzling words, Peter's figure instantly soared into the sky. Everyone looked up at the sky, gazing at the rapidly rising, brilliant star. In less than a minute, the star had already escaped the atmosphere, like the brightest star in the night sky, radiating an intense light that brightened the entire New York City nightscape. P.S. It's the 2 most important days of the week again. I implore everyone to read the latest chapters daily. Kowtow, dong dong dong. Chapter 56. Dr. Pym, I need your help. As the stars shone brightly over New York, the history-changing experiment finally concluded. Under military guidance, everyone began to depart the island by boat. Tony Stark, a billionaire and a military favorite, naturally didn't need to leave the island by boat like the average spectator. A state-of-the-art attack helicopter had been waiting for a long time. Flanked by several bodyguards, Tony made his way past the socialites who were constantly shoving notes at him and slowly made his way to the waiting helicopter. Ta-da-da! The helicopter's propellers spun rapidly, and the attack helicopter seemed poised for takeoff. But then, a thin young man, taking advantage of the guards' inattention, ran up to the helicopter and shouted to Tony inside, "Mr. Stark, please wait." "Looks like a male reporter," Happy glanced over, turning to report to Tony. "Let's go." If it had been a beautiful female reporter, Tony might have wasted the entire evening with her. "Wait, Mr. Stark." The helicopter's propellers spun faster, and the helicopter lifted off the ground. But the guy seemed desperate, grabbing the horizontal bar under the helicopter's base, attempting to recreate a famous Captain 5-5 scene. "Shit, are you looking for death?" Tony and Happy were helpless, only able to let the helicopter land again. Happy even got out and tackled the guy to the ground. "Never mind, I'm suddenly interested in what made this guy so desperate." Tony had stepped out of the helicopter and said to Happy. "Lucky you," Happy muttered, letting go of the young man. "Hello, Mr. Stark, I'm Eddie B. I don't have the patience to know your name, just tell me what you want," Tony interrupted impatiently. "All right, Mr. Stark, please take a look. These are the photos I took at your new biological experiment." Eddie didn't hesitate, carefully pulling out a few photos from his arms and trying to hand them to Tony. "Sorry, I'm not used to accepting things from strangers," Tony said, waving his hand and pointing at Happy. "Sir, look." Happy was stunned when he took the photos from Eddie's hand, then hurriedly handed them to Tony. "Huh? This is..." Tony's previously nonchalant expression suddenly turned serious upon seeing the photos. "Where did you get these?" Tony put the photos away and stared at Eddie seriously. "I took these photos from the biological laboratory you set up. I guess they were taken secretly," Happy said bluntly. "Yeah, I mean, why did you give them to me? Or what do you want in return? Money? Or some other favor?" No, I just want you to know the truth or, if possible, shut down that laboratory." Eddie waved his hands hastily, indicating that he wasn't after money or favors. "So, you're an intern reporter, what do you mean, Mr. Stark is saying that professional journalists aren't as naive, or stupid, as you are," Happy added without hesitation. "Let's go, Happy." Tony turned and returned to the helicopter. As the helicopter gradually took off, Tony, in the cabin, once again produced the photos. Looking at the photo of the man strapped to the lab table, the pale green light emanating from his arms, and the man's expression of immense pain, almost like a beast, a hint of solemnity crossed his eyes. "Hey, you were very brave just now." Just as Eddie watched the helicopter gradually disappear into the sky, a pleasant voice came from behind him. "Who are you?" Eddie turned and looked at the beautiful blonde before him. Somewhat bewildered. "You're very brave, and you're a good reporter. By the way, do you still have those photos?" Hearing the beautiful woman's praise, Eddie blushed and hurriedly pulled out several new photos from his bag. "Of course, I have plenty of backups. After all, I'm not stupid." "Yes, it was them who did it." Looking at the familiar face on the lab table in the photo, Gwen confirmed her suspicions. "Remember, just pretend this never happened." It's not your business. Upon receiving the news, Gwen's smile slowly faded, and she turned and left. Sure enough, those missing homeless people were all captured by Stark Industries, but what terrifying things are they researching? Gwen's face flickered with a grimace, recalling the horrific scenes in the photos. No, we must find a chance to infiltrate that laboratory and see what they're working on. Gwen silently made up her mind. General, let's talk again. Osborn Industries can not only provide future weaponry, but also a human enhancement drug. Meanwhile, Norman Osborn continued to plead with the military to reverse their decision. But all he got was the tail of a helicopter that took off. Damn you, Tony Stark, why couldn't you just come back a few days later? Originally, according to the contract, the military funds were to be transferred to Osborn Industries' account in a few days. But now, everything was over. You guys forced me to do this. I can't lose these orders, and I can't lose Osborn Industries. Clenching his fists, Norman's eyes suddenly hardened, as if he had made a decision. Without hesitation, he turned around, leaving behind a lonely figure. Endless, inexhaustible energy. In a luxurious villa, Obadiah slowly turned off the 120-inch TV screen and sat on the sofa, sipping red wine as he sighed. HMPH, if the experiment succeeds, both Stark Industries and this endless energy source will be mine. A bright smile crossed Obadiah's face as he thought this. Suddenly, his phone on the table chimed, suggesting a text message. Sir, Tony Stark has just received some unfavorable information. I hope you'll prepare. Obadiah's face darkened at the sight of the unsigned message. Tony Stark, you've returned at a truly inopportune moment. I'm on the verge of success, so, for my bright future and for the sake of my Stark Industries, or rather, Stan Industries, you must go downstairs and meet your foolish father. Obadiah's face darkened as he slowly made his decision. Soon, a few days had passed. The people of New York City had become accustomed to the sight of a star brighter than the moon hanging in the sky at night. In the first few days, some people curiously watched through telescopes, even expecting the artificial star to explode in space. But as the days progressed, everyone gradually realized that the artificial sun device seemed remarkably stable, exhibiting no unexpected problems even in the harsh environment of space. Gradually, fewer people paid any attention to the bright star. Of course, this didn't include the government and military, who were closely monitoring the star floating in space. Its boundless energy could almost rewrite the course of humanity. If this artificial star hadn't been placed there by a powerful, godlike Superman, they would have likely captured it and studied it. And so it went, until a few days later, when someone knocked on the window of Dr. Pym's apartment. Pym, who was working on the next generation Ant-Man suit, immediately packed up and went to the window, hoping to see whose child had been so disobedient. Suddenly, he saw a familiar figure floating in the sky. Dr. Pym, I need your help. Peter slowly descended from the sky, peering down at Dr. Pym through the window and continuing. Help me shrink that star in the sky. P.S. Please read, recommend, and vote. If you'd like to join the group, please click the link below. Chapter 57. The portal opens successfully. Mr. Superman? Are you sure you're not kidding? Dr. Pym was already surprised by Superman's appearance before him. Hearing his words in a deep voice only deepened his astonishment. Of course, I never joke, Peter said seriously, no hint of joking in his voice. But I have no experience using Pym particles to shrink energy devices. Dr. Pym wanted to politely decline, and of course, he wasn't lying. Dr. Pym, I believe you can do it. Suddenly, Peter's figure vanished from Dr. Pym's sight, and the next second, a voice came from behind him. Very well, please allow me to clean up first. Turning around, Dr. Pym saw Superman's imminent, oppressive presence and knew he couldn't refuse. A few minutes later, Pym had packed up everything, leaving a message for his daughter. He then returned to Peter with the Pym particles he had crafted. He hadn't considered using the Pym suit to escape. After all, with Superman's immense power, he couldn't escape his pursuit unless he simply hid in quantum space. Mr. Superman, I'm ready. How do we leave? Dr. Pym looked at Peter, awaiting his move. That's it. Peter's lips curled into a mysterious smile, and he slowly raised his right hand. The next second, a stream of azure energy shot out from the nanosuit on his arm, leaving a trail of azure energy in the air. Then, like a liquid, the energy slowly spread outward, quickly forming a blue curtain of light more than a man's height. Is this magic? Dr. Pym's eyes widened as he watched in disbelief. It's just experimental technology, but don't worry, it's completely safe for now." Peter smiled, and to reassure Dr. Pym, he stepped into the curtain of light. This is truly incredible. Watching Peter disappear into the blue curtain of light, Dr. Pym couldn't help but circle around it curiously, but he couldn't figure out the underlying principle. Finally, he closed his eyes, like a prisoner about to die, and, summoning his courage, he suddenly stepped into it. "Hello, Dr. Pym. I'm Reed Richards. Your creation of the Pym particles truly amazes us. We never imagined such amazing technology." As Dr. Pym stepped into the blue light curtain, before he could even open his eyes, he suddenly heard an unfamiliar voice. "What were you doing?" He slowly opened his eyes, and was immediately shocked to discover that the scene before him had dramatically changed. In the blink of an eye, he had been transported from his home to a technologically advanced laboratory. A dozen unfamiliar figures appeared before him. "What you just experienced is one of our inventions, which we've tentatively named the portal," Reed replied with considerable pride. Indeed, this portal was his creation. After acquiring a large amount of vibranium and conducting extensive testing and research, he suddenly had the idea to fully refine his previous portal concept. Then, under Peter's supervision, they opened the first portal capable of traveling across space. A portal? This is incredible. It's like divine magic. Dr. Pym stepped down from a massive arched structure and couldn't help but look back at the pale blue energy gradually dissipating from it, his eyes filled with disbelief. Of course, this technology is still in its experimental stages, and each activation requires an immense amount of energy. Frankly, the portal at this moment was actually being forced open by a massive energy supply. First, this arch-like structure was constructed almost entirely of vibranium. Second, it was powered by a dozen arc reactors, requiring nearly 10 hours of continuous charging to build up sufficient energy within the vibranium before it could be opened for less than a minute. Furthermore, each activation required the palladium in dozens of reactors to be replaced. A huge amount of energy. Dr. Pym couldn't help but circle the massive arched structure, and sure enough, he could see a dozen glowing reactors on its exterior. Not only that, this device currently only fixes the teleportation coordinates on one side. It can't teleport in both directions, nor can it teleport as desired. "Well, it's like the portal scroll in some games." Reed generously explained all the shortcomings of the portal, but even so, a strong sense of pride could be seen on his face. Portal scroll? Incredible, incredible. Although he was an old man and didn't know what a portal scroll meant, he still understood what Reed said. "Oh, by the way, where's Mr. Superman who came early?" After exclaiming in amazement, Dr. Pym finally remembered Peter. He must have gone to retrieve the star that illuminates New York. "Look, he's back." Reed was just saying this when he saw a familiar figure appear in the hallway, holding a star in one hand that shone with brilliant light. Late at night, in Tony Stark's villa. "Jarvis, any news on that biological laboratory you were asked to investigate?" Tony asked Jarvis, dropping the photo he had been examining over and over again on the table. "Sir, the company does have records of the establishment of that biological laboratory, and Miss Potts was placed on forced leave at that time. However, none of the equipment in that lab is connected to the internet, and the information is stored on a separate server. So, unfortunately, I can't." "So, that's all you can find?" Tony's face darkened. Upon returning, he discovered his personal secretary had been placed on forced leave. Furious, he immediately lifted Pepper's leave and didn't pursue the matter further. Unexpectedly, the reason for her forced leave was precisely because of that lab. "Have you found any other clues on Obadiah's personal computer or phone?" Tony was already beginning to suspect his father's partner, his uncle, despite his previous resistance. "I'm sorry, sir, Mr. Stan's computer has a very strong security system. Breaking it by force might reveal it. It seems he's keeping everything impeccably hidden." Seeing that this method still didn't work, Tony's face darkened completely. "In that case, I'll have to act personally." The next moment, Tony stood up from the sofa. He picked up the nanoparticle storage container from the table, placed it against his chest, and tapped it twice. In less than 3 seconds, the nanoset completely covered his body, and the metal mask dropped with a bang. His eyes, radiating white light, filled everyone with an inexplicable sense of fear. Then, a dazzling burst of flame erupted from beneath his feet, freeing him from gravity and causing him to float. The powerful thrust propelled him directly through the basement door and into the vast sky. Boom! With a powerful sonic boom, he, clad in his armor, instantly broke the speed of sound and flew towards the special biological laboratory. Hey? Did you notice that the bright star in the sky seems to have disappeared today, at the same time? Many people were surprised to find that the star that had illuminated the New York night sky had suddenly disappeared tonight. And beneath the black night sky, a slender figure in black and white, wearing a tight-fitting suit, reappeared after several days. Spider silk gushed out, and the figure swayed between the skyscrapers, rapidly rushing towards a laboratory in the suburbs of New York. P.S. Today is the most important day of the week. I hope everyone can catch up with the latest chapter. Chapter 58, Ferocious Beast. At night, in the suburbs of New York City, a tightly sealed biological laboratory remained brightly lit. Several scientists in white coats busied themselves with various experiments. A balding researcher slowly stepped away from the microscope on his lab bench. He opened a sealed safe behind him, pulled out a vial of pale yellow liquid, and slowly entered a specially isolated room. On a metal lab bench in the center of the room, a homeless man was bound. His frail frame bore countless hideous wounds, and he looked utterly frail, having gone without food for a long time. "No, don't do this. Please, let me go." As the bald old man slowly approached, the homeless man on the lab bench's face was instantly filled with intense fear. His already wounded and nearly dying body began to struggle violently, attempting to resist the researcher's approach. However, his wounds were still severe. He had been starving for days, and even his hands, feet, torso, and head were completely bound by a solid metal, making him almost unable to move. So no matter how hard he struggled, it was futile. "Don't be afraid, it will be healed soon." The bald old man smiled a mad smile as he slowly injected the potion into the veins of the homeless man's arm. As the potion slowly flowed into the homeless man's body, the veins beneath the skin of his once skinny arm suddenly turned pale yellow. Soon, his entire arm turned yellow. Roar! The homeless man let out an inhuman, beast-like howl, seemingly filled with intense pain. The next moment, his skinny arm began to grow stronger. Bang! Finally, with a crisp sound, he forcibly broke through the metal binding. As the restraints were broken, sharp bone spurs slowly protruded from the outside of his arm. Bone spurs pierced through the skin, growing at a visible rate. Soon, they resembled sharp blades, flashing with a chilling, cold light. Meanwhile, the bald old man had already sprinted out of the sealed laboratory, closing the over 10-centimeter thick metal door without hesitation. He impatiently scrambled to a small window, peering through layers of bulletproof glass, his eyes filled with frantic longing as he observed everything within. The homeless man's entire form had undergone a dramatic transformation. His frail frame had become immensely powerful, like a massive beast, completely free of its restraints. He was constantly destroying the various facilities within the laboratory. Bang! With one hand, he easily lifted the test bench he had been lying on and slammed it against the surrounding metal walls. He then leaped over 10 meters, his head slamming into the metal ceiling above, creating a massive dent. He then fell heavily to the ground. Then, as if nothing had happened, he quickly climbed to his feet, shook his head, and charged towards the surrounding metal walls once more. The bone spurs on his arms, like daggers sharper than metal, scratched deep gashes on the metal walls. It's incredible. Every time I see this unhuman power, I can't help but be fascinated by it. The bald man gazed at the beast wreaking havoc in the laboratory with a fascinated look. "How is the experiment going? We don't have much time left. Tony Stark has his sights set on this place." Suddenly, a voice came from behind him, interrupting the longing in his eyes. "Mr. Stan, you're here. Although the experiment has made great progress, it's not truly successful. The test subject has developed strong violent tendencies after being injected with a drug. Even though we've used a special brain fluid extracted from human brain nerves to combine with it, we've been able to suppress that particular violent tendency, but we can't completely eliminate it." Turning back to look at the financial backer who supported his crazy scientific research, the bald man said with regret in his tone. Bang, bang, bang. As if to confirm his words, bursts of violent noises echoed from the sealed laboratory behind him. The bald man pressed a button, and the next moment, a thick, toxic gas erupted from the sealed laboratory. The monster, previously raging furiously, collapsed to the ground. As if performing a trivial task, the bald man, under Obadiah's watchful eye, personally opened a nearby sealed safe to showcase his recent research. "Look, these two potions. One is made directly from the DNA extracted from that arm, and this pale yellow one is our improved version. he explained, pointing to the two colored potions. What's the difference? Obadiah gazed at the two reagents, a flicker of curiosity on his face. Although these original potions can grant humans immense power, they also have terrible side effects. Upon injection, they transform into ruthless, bloodthirsty monsters, devoid of any sense. Our improved potions, while still inflicting intense violence, will not completely destroy human consciousness, and they have no unacceptable side effects. Of course, this doesn't represent the final outcome of my research. I'm working hard to completely eliminate these side effects. The bald man explained the process to Obadiah and reassured him. No, this place has been targeted. We must move everything here as soon as possible and conduct research in a safer location. A serious look flashed in Obadiah's eyes, and he slowly made a decision. Give me one vial each of the two reagents. I'll be leaving first. Quickly pack up everything and prepare to move. Without hesitation, Obadiah took one vial each from the safe, put them away, and prepared to leave. Okay, sir, we'll clean up right away. Who is it? Just as the bald man closed the safe and prepared to pack up and move, a silvery white spider silk suddenly shot out from the sky and instantly clung to the safe. No, the next moment, amidst the bald man's angry roar, the safe was yanked away. At the same time, everyone was shocked to discover that, unbeknownst to them, a figure in a spider suit had suddenly appeared on the ceiling above them. Oh no! It's that pesky Spider-Man! At that moment, everyone reacted, and the security guards raised their guns and pulled the triggers at the figure without hesitation. Explosive gunfire erupted in a flurry, and countless researchers hid under tables, their heads in their hands. Obadiah also hid under a table, and coincidentally, the bald man was right next to him. Oh no! The gunfire is getting quieter. That damn guy is such a pain in the ass. After hiding for a while, Obadiah noticed the gunfire growing fainter. Amidst a flurry of bangs and exclamations, even the last gunshot faded completely. I'm sorry, Obadiah's eyes blazed fiercely. He slowly pulled out the green vial from the potion he had just put away and thrust it fiercely into the bald man he had been hiding with. Mr. Stan, you? Amidst a gaze filled with disbelief, the bald man's consciousness gradually faded. In its place, an incredibly ferocious beast emerged. Chapter 59. Obadiah, am no longer a human being. Hey, everyone, no need to hide. I've got you surrounded. Easily dispatching the armed security guards, each one tethered to the wall or ceiling with spider webs, Gwen leisurely made her way towards the hiding place of the researchers. This feeling, however, as Gwen approached, her spider sense instantly activated. The next moment, the massive metal table housing the researchers suddenly flipped over and, with a powerful impact, crashed directly towards her. Wow, are they crazy? They've created another monster. Gwen leaped several meters, performing a nimble backflip in midair, dodging the impact of the metal table. The moment she landed, she finally saw the researcher hiding beneath the table. It had transformed into a familiar monster. This monster isn't Superman or something. This one only has 2 arms, and it's a bit smaller than the last one. The moment she saw the monster, Gwen recalled those unpleasant memories. At that moment, she was being unilaterally crushed by the 4-armed monster. If Superman hadn't appeared, the consequences would have been AWW. Suddenly, the monster roared to the heavens, its massive body brimming with power, its ferocious face filled with bestial madness. Disgusting mucus flowed from the corners of its mouth, and its enormous eyes were bloodshot. Suddenly, the monster's gaze shifted from Gwen to Obadiah, who was cautiously retreating behind it, trying to find a chance to escape. Fuck. Go find that damn guy. Even Obadiah felt his legs weaken under the monster's ferocious and insane gaze. Roar. As if a lingering subconscious hatred for Obadiah still lingered, the monster roared furiously, then raised a leg thicker than a bucket and kicked Obadiah hard. No, seeing the monster trying to hurt someone right under her nose, Gwen instantly shot a stream of spider silk at the monster's raised leg. However, the monster's power was so immense that even Gwen stumbled, nearly falling flat on her face. Meanwhile, Obadiah, like a kicked football, flew over 10 meters before slamming into a metal wall with a thud. Ahem, damn it, it wasn't clear if it was his resilience or Gwen's spider silk that was working. Obadiah didn't faint completely from the blow, but he still coughed up blood. Roar, the monster turned and stared at Gwen, its eyes filled with madness. The next moment, it brandished a fist larger than a sandbag and charged at Gwen without hesitation. Gwen dared not engage the monster directly, relying on nimble movement to dodge through the cramped, equipment-filled lab. From time to time, it shot out spider silk, lifting heavy objects and smashing them against the monster's head. This creature's strength seems much weaker than the last one. During the fight and the evasion, Gwen keenly realized that although the monster appeared frantic, its power wasn't much greater than hers. It was, at most, twice her own. Well, I can find a chance to completely subdue it. Gwen's thoughts raced, dodging the monster's attacks while searching for the right opportunity. Boom! Gwen's spider sense activated, nimbly dodging another powerful punch from the monster. But the monster's fist, packing tens of tons of force, slammed into the laboratory's support wall. The immense force instantly cracked the wall in a spiderweb-like pattern, sending a violent tremor through the entire laboratory. No, we have to lure it away, or it'll collapse this place in no time. Feeling the intense vibration, Gwen made a decision. Zzz! Boom! Just as Gwen was about to lure the monster to a deserted area, the laboratory ceiling was easily cut open by a blazing laser. A massive metal plate crashed down, crushing the monster behind her to the ground. What kind of monster is this? A tin man. As Gwen stared in shock, a figure resembling a robot slowly floated into the lab from the air. Hey, little bug, have you seen a bald guy? With long hair, he'd look like Lebowski. The robot's visor opened, revealing a face that surprised Gwen. Are you Tony Stark? Gwen exclaimed in shock. Stop making such a fuss, answer my question first. Seeing the young creature's seemingly unworldly appearance, Tony asked again, somewhat helplessly. Are you talking about Mr. Obadiah Stane from Stark Industries? Gwen was speechless at Tony's metaphor, but she understood he was referring to Obadiah. Yes, that's him. Where is he now? Tony's eyes lit up, and he pressed on. He just got kicked by the monster. He's in the very back of the lab. Before Gwen could finish, Tony, in the air, accelerated and rushed into the lab. But seconds later, he quickly returned. He's gone. Jarvis, activate the satellites and find him as soon as possible, Tony ordered sullenly. Sir, we've found Mr. Stan's car. It's heading downtown. Bye, little bug. The next moment, Tony's mask snapped shut again, and he soared into the sky. Cool. If someone could give me a set like this, I'd be your godfather. Gwen watched Tony soar like Superman, her eyes filled with envy. Boom. Suddenly, a loud bang jolted Gwen back to reality. The monster, previously slammed to the ground, climbed back up, lifted the massive steel plate, and hurled it at Gwen. Damn it. Why is it always me who gets hurt? Dodging the monster's attack once again, Gwen felt helpless. Roar. It seemed the lowly reptile's constant harassment, unable to catch her, had infuriated the monster. Then, with a sudden leap of dozens of meters, it leaped through the gap above the laboratory. Oh no. This guy isn't going to make it to the city. Seeing the monster flee, Gwen suddenly felt a surge of anxiety. The next moment, she hurriedly leaped out of the lab, shooting out webs, chasing the monster. As they left the lab, a figure suddenly appeared in the air. Tony Stark, Spider-Man? Hey, with a sinister laugh, the figure followed, chasing off into the distance. On the road just before the city, a luxurious Rolls-Royce sped by. Ahem, Spider-Man? And that guy, they both deserve death. Obadiah spat out another mouthful of blood, his eyes filled with hatred. But now, to save his life, he had no choice but to rush to the hospital. Whoa. Everyone, look up in the sky. What's that? Is it Superman? Pedestrians suddenly looked up at the rapidly approaching figure and wondered. Shit, did we attract Superman? At that moment, Obadiah felt as if he'd gone to a spy and been surrounded by special forces. Clang. But soon, he noticed a metal figure in red and gold armor descend from the sky, kneeling in front of his car. Whoever you are, die. The next moment, Obadiah's face was filled with madness. He floored the accelerator and slammed into the car. Bang! With a resounding bang, the entire front of the luxurious Rolls-Royce caved in. Puff! Obadiah's head slammed hard against the airbag. You forced me to do this. Shaking his dizzy head, the madness in his eyes intensified. Then, with trembling hands, he pulled out a vial of pale yellow reagent he'd carried and injected it directly into himself. I, Obadiah, am no longer human. The next moment, a terrifying force suddenly surged through his body. A primal madness surged through his brain. Chapter 60, Sunsuit, Golden Superman. In Antarctica, in a deserted, special laboratory, A dazzling star sat in its very center. A group of researchers gathered around it, conducting final checks and preparations before shrinking it. Mr. Superman, everything is ready. We can begin the shrinking experiment, Dr. Pym said slowly to Peter, who was standing nearby, after a final, careful inspection. Then, let's begin. After hours of preparation, Peter was already impatient. Everyone, please stay away from the artificial star. We are about to begin the experiment, Dr. Pym shouted to the crowd. At this moment, Dr. Pym was undoubtedly the primary investigator for this experiment. He pulled 2 tubes of red Pym particles from the package he had brought with him. Are these Pym particles? Everyone was captivated by the red Pym particles, their eyes filled with curiosity and amazement. Since being kidnapped by Peter, everyone present had witnessed several incredible technologies being realized before his eyes. It could be said that in just over a month, Earth had undergone a massive transformation under their very eyes. It had already made them feel somewhat numb. Yet, facing this cutting-edge technology capable of shrinking the distance between molecules, everyone still found it incredibly baffling. I hope my decision is right. Dr. Pym's gaze grew firm as he gazed upon the culmination of his life's work. Without hesitation, he injected it into the vibranium device surrounding the artificial star. Now, activate the energy shield. After completing everything, Dr. Pym quickly moved away from the artificial star at the center of the laboratory and spoke slowly. The next second, press the energy shield activation button without hesitation. Instantly, a transparent energy shield, visible to the naked eye, completely enveloped the artificial star. While they were confident they had already achieved this, they had also taken considerable precautions to ensure everyone present, save Peter, would become familiar faces in the blink of an eye. Everyone, please open your eyes. It was a great honor for Dr. Pym to have his technology recognized by so many. Without hesitation, he pressed the shrinking controller in his hand. Buzz, buzz. Instantly, under everyone's gaze, the artificial star, enveloped in the energy shield, began to emit a strange wave. Like a human heart, infused with life, it began to beat slowly, leaving a trail of shadows in the air. As the beating gradually accelerated, suddenly, the artificial star vanished from everyone's sight. No, it wasn't completely gone, for the dazzling light it emanated still shone brightly. It actually shrunk? This is incredible. At that moment, everyone stared at the egg-sized artificial star device on the floor in the center of the laboratory, their eyes filled with shock. We seem to have succeeded, Dr. Pym announced slowly, a smile breaking across his face. It's truly incredible. Everyone stared intently at the tiny star, fearing it would vanish in the blink of an eye. Dr. Pym, thank you for your hard work. Peter, observing everything calmly, slowly expressed his gratitude to Dr. Pym. By the way, if you can shrink an artificial star, is it possible to shrink a real one? Mr. Superman, please don't joke like that. Dr. Pym's forehead was instantly covered in cold sweat. Shrinking a real star? He actually thought he could. Nothing, I'm just asking. Peter smiled and didn't press further. Actually, it's not completely impossible. If a Dyson sphere could be built, perhaps, Dr. Pym said hesitantly. Dyson sphere, Peter muttered, slowly committing the thought to memory. You guys wait outside, I'll go in and take a look. Although the artificial star had been successfully miniaturized, unexpected events were inevitable. Peter, with his mortal body, withstood the assault of the protective shield and entered unscathed. He slowly picked up the gleaming, egg-sized star on the ground. Grasp the sun and moon with your hands and pick the stars. He lifted the radiant artificial star and examined it carefully. Finding no fault, Peter placed it against his chest without hesitation, inserting it into the nanosuit he had prepared for it. The next moment, his nanosuit began to surge, and nanoparticles instantly engulfed the small star. The arc reactor, originally serving as its power source, slowly shut down, detaching from the nanosuit and falling to the ground. The next moment, Peter's figure slowly ascended, a powerful surge of solar energy instantly and continuously brimming into his body. Congratulations, host. Your abilities have been fully awakened. From the star on his chest, a golden energy, reminiscent of sunlight, emanated from the lines of his black nanosuit. Like a liquid, it flowed along the lines of the suit, enveloping him. Even his crimson cape was tinged with a sun-like golden radiance, emanating a shimmering golden glow. The golden light illuminated Peter's angular features, making them appear as if tinted with gold, lending them an even more majestic presence. In that moment, amidst the adoring gazes of the crowd, He resembled a true god, the Golden Superman. Meanwhile, on a busy street in New York City, Tony gazed at the Rolls-Royce he had forcibly stopped and slowly approached the door, ready to rescue Obadiah from within. Roar. Then, a roar inhuman, a furious roar, echoed throughout the street. The roof of the Rolls-Royce suddenly shattered, seemingly propped up by something massive. "Jarvis, what's going on?" Tony asked, gazing at the scene in shock. "Sir, it must be the same monster you saw earlier. Mr. Stan has also used some special potion. Is this guy really going to die?" Tony had never imagined his uncle could be so mad. Roar. Suddenly, accompanied by a tremendous roar, the entire car was torn apart by a powerful force, and a terrifying monster appeared before everyone. "Whoa, everyone, run. The monsters are attacking again. Why are we so unlucky? I've decided to move out of New York City when I get back. It's too dangerous here." Countless pedestrians, already in a state of panic, made a secret decision as they fled. The monster's brutal gaze instantly fixed on Tony, who stood there stunned. The next moment, with a roar, it clenched its fists as big as sabers, and suddenly rushed towards him. "Uncle Obadiah, it's me." Tony opened his mask, revealing his face, hoping to awaken his brutal uncle. "Tony? Why you?" Obadiah's fist suddenly stopped, his face filled with surprise, as he stared at Tony in the armor with disbelief. "Hey, if it's you, that's fantastic." The next moment, his fist, which had stopped, swung rapidly again, striking Tony directly in the body and sending him flying. Boom! The immense force sent Tony flying hundreds of meters, embedding him in the wall of a building. Ahem, thank goodness I anticipated this kind of thing, so I developed better shock-absorbing materials. Tony was thankful he hadn't been like that guy and completely ignored the armor's protective capabilities. "Since you started it, don't blame me, nephew, for fighting back." The next moment, Tony burst out of the building, sprinting towards the shit-colored monster. However, a figure, even faster than Tony, appeared before the monster in an instant. At the same time, dazzling golden beams burst from its eyes, instantly piercing the monster's body. Instant kill. This guy changed his skin. P.S. Please read on, give me monthly votes, and recommend me. Thanks to fellow reader for the tip. Chapter 61 Tenacious Vitality. This guy not only changed his skin, he even changed the power source for his suit. As Peter slowly turned, Tony gazed at the new energy source on his chest, emitting a golden, star-like glow, his eyes filled with astonishment. And how on earth did he manage to shrink that massive artificial sun down to this size? He was deeply curious about how he had managed to shrink the artificial sun to such a size, capable of replacing his own arc reactor. "You looked a little flustered just now," Peter said calmly, his tone tinged with sarcasm. "You don't understand. I was just giving him a head start. After all, he was once my uncle." It was unclear whether Tony was being truthful or just trying to save face. "Besides, you were completely meddling just now. Even if you hadn't intervened, I could easily have defeated him, so, don't even think I'd thank you. And you weren't careful when you kidnapped me earlier." Tony spoke arrogantly, but suddenly his tone changed and he warned Peter. Roar. A furious roar echoed from behind Peter. The monster, previously lying on the ground, had now risen to its feet, the large hole in its chest healing rapidly. Then, taking advantage of the two men's conversation, it swiftly lunged towards Peter, who was in midair. However, the next moment, the monster saw nothing before it, and Peter had vanished in an instant. How is this possible? How could you be so fast? A flicker of disbelief flashed in Obadiah's eyes. But even if I could kill Tony, it would be the same. From today on, no one will compete with me for the company. But as he gazed at Tony, now so close, his eyes once again filled with endless madness. He ignored the instantly vanishing Superman and lunged directly at Tony, who was not far away. Bang! Obadiah's monster-like speed was so impressive that before Tony could react, he was struck by a powerful punch. Clang! Like a meteor falling from the sky, it slammed heavily into the ground, carving a deep chasm in the road. "You told me not to interfere. Don't beg me later." Peter reappeared high in the sky, looking down at the beleaguered Tony below, watching the spectacle with fascination. "Damn Superman, damn monster, you want me to beg you?" "Absolutely not." Tony quickly scrambled to his feet, his heart filled with rage. But the next moment, he realized Obadiah was charging at him again. His sandbag-sized fist, combined with the gravitational potential energy of the fall, combined to create an incredibly powerful impact. Come on, I'll show you all that Tony Stark, am no match for anyone. Tony was now filled with a fierce fighting spirit. He raised his right hand, and the nanoparticles in his body flowed continuously. In less than 5 milliseconds, it transformed into a man-high metal shield. The moment the shield formed, Obadiah's attack followed. Boom! The sandbag-sized fist slammed into the shield, erupting with an incredibly loud roar. It also unleashed an invisible wave of air that shattered the nearby glass. I'll show you right now. My modified nano armor allows me, a mortal, to stand shoulder to shoulder with gods. Successfully blocking Obadiah's attack seemed to give Tony immense confidence. The next moment, the nanoparticles forming his shield surged again. As the shield vanished, a sharp blade appeared in his left hand. As Obadiah stared in astonishment, it swiftly slashed towards him. Swoosh! The sharp blade traced a graceful line through the air. Its immense speed creating a whirring sound as if it were slicing through the very air. Whoosh! Seeing the situation was dire, Obadiah retreated. However, he was still a step too slow. His sturdy right arm was slashed by the sharp blade, leaving a deep wound so deep that the bone was visible. Shit, yellow blood gushed out, highly corrosive. The intense pain seemed to drive Obadiah even more frantic, his roars unceasing. The original wound not only failed to heal as quickly as before, but it actually expanded, as if something within was about to break free. The unpleasant sound of flesh tearing, coupled with Obadiah's inhuman wail, sounded like the low moan of a demon from the depths of hell. The next moment, as Tony stared in shock, a pale bone spur slowly emerged from the wound on his arm, transforming into a bone blade several dozen centimeters long, gleaming with a chilling cold light. Tony, you never expected this. This potion not only grants me immense power, but also near immortality and an evolutionary speed far beyond anything else. With these last words, Obadiah suddenly kicked off, charging towards Tony like a cannonball. The sheer speed prevented Tony from even conjuring a nano-shield, forcing him to tumble to the side in dismay. With a swish, Obadiah's blow missed Tony, but the sharp bone blade sliced through a streetlight behind him with the effortless ease of tofu. Ahem, if you need help, you can ask me. As Superman, I'm always happy to help. Peter, watching the show from the sky, casually reminded the flustered Tony. No need, I haven't lost yet. Tony quickly climbed to his feet, and the next moment, intense flames erupted from his feet, sending him soaring into the air. Has this guy finally remembered he's a ranged class? Floating in the air, Tony's face was filled with renewed confidence. The nanoparticles in his hand swirled rapidly again, slowly transforming into a massive energy cannon. Intense red energy was constantly gathering within it, and a dangerous aura instantly enveloped Obadiah on the ground. Roar! Obadiah certainly wasn't going to just stand there and be a sitting duck. He kept moving rapidly across the ground, throwing whatever objects he could grab at Tony, who was gathering energy in the air, in an attempt to stop him. Indeed, Obadiah's actions were indeed effective. Dodging the rapidly flying objects, Tony was somewhat flustered, and his energy-gathering speed slowed considerably. But after a dozen seconds, it finally reached its peak. The red light, emitting a powerful, menacing aura, instantly blasted towards Obadiah's head, as Jarvis aimed. I don't believe you can heal yourself without your head. At this moment, Tony was determined to kill him. However, Obadiah, on the ground, seemed to be acutely aware of the terrifying energy attack. His already swiftly dodging body sped up even further. Jarvis, you missed. It was these few seconds that caused Jarvis's precise aim to deviate. The bucket-sized red energy missed his head, striking his left side instead. Even so, the terrifying energy instantly vaporized half of his body, its momentum undiminished, piercing a bottomless hole in the ground. How is it going? Wasn't my move pretty good? Watching Obadiah's body collapse to the ground, his intestines spilling out, Tony slowly turned around and proudly boasted to Peter. Well, it's not bad, but it's a shame you're celebrating too soon. Peter's words gave Tony a bad feeling. But it was too late. A rope suddenly swung from the ground into the air, directly binding Tony's body and pulling him towards the ground. A closer look revealed that it wasn't a rope at all, but Obadiah's intestines, which had just spilled out onto the ground. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62. Gwen pulls the train. As Tony was dragged toward the ground, Obadiah dragged his broken body, a sinister grin on his face. He slowly raised his right hand and held the sharp blade across his body, attempting to use the immense force to pull Tony's body onto the blade and cut him in two. Suddenly, Peter's gaze in the air froze. He stopped watching the spectacle, and two golden beams flashed from his eyes, instantly severing Obadiah's intestines. The next second, he vanished from the air, reappearing before Obadiah in the blink of an eye. He exhaled a breath of icy air, freezing him into an ice sculpture. Then, he struck the sculpture with a single punch. Crack! Instantly, the entire sculpture shattered beneath Peter's blow, leaving not a single shred. You can still be resurrected like this? You're quite impressive. Without even glancing at his handiwork, Peter soared into the sky again, vanishing in an instant. Only Tony, still recovering from his shock, was left, staring at the all-over Obadiah with a hint of pity in his eyes. A few minutes ago, a train sped along a railway in suburban New York. Oh my goodness! Another monster has appeared in New York City. It was already late at night, and everyone on the train was already drowsy and sleepy. But suddenly, a cry of surprise awoke the entire train. Everyone, check your phones. It's real. There's a monster. Just as someone was about to criticize, several more passengers exclaimed in surprise. Monster? Could it be the same monster Superman defeated last time? Soon, curious people pulled out their phones and checked. So there really is a monster. Luckily, it's far away. No need to worry for now. A moment later, someone saw the latest news report about a monster appearing in downtown New York. Fortunately, their train was heading out of town, so there was no need to worry. I don't know why, but New York City has been plagued by so many disasters lately. Thank goodness we have Superman, otherwise I hope they were safe. Kind-hearted citizens prayed for the stranger, hoping they could escape the monster's attack. Ahem, does the monster you're talking about look like that? Suddenly, a passenger sitting by the window's eyes widened as they gazed out at a massive figure running and leaping alongside the train in the night. What? How could it be? Why is there another monster here? Upon hearing this, someone turned to look out the window and instantly saw the monster running after the train. No, I don't want to die. Quickly notify the conductor. We need to stop immediately. The moment they discovered the presence of a monster, the train erupted in chaos, with screams ringing out. Outside, a green monster was following the train, running and leaping. Its gaze was fixed on the speeding train, filled with curiosity, like a child spotting a favorite toy. Suddenly, it leaped onto the roof. Bang! The immense force instantly dented the metal roof. Oh my god, the passengers inside screamed in fear and scrambled to other cars. However, the monster didn't stop on this car, but continued to run and leap across the roof. Bang, bang, bang. As if something heavy were rolling over the train, the entire train suddenly sensed an unknown monster looming above. Everyone huddled together in fear, feeling helpless. Look everyone. It's Spider-Man. She's here to save us. In this critical moment, someone finally spotted a figure swaying on a web of spiderwebs outside the window and exclaimed with joy. It's Spider-Man. Great. We're saved. The others also spotted Spider-Man and were instantly overwhelmed with joy. No, we have to get this thing off this train. Gwen, swinging between the tall buildings, racked her brains, trying to figure out how to get the monster off the train. After all, this monster possessed immense strength and lacked any sense of reason. A speeding train is more vulnerable to danger. That's why Gwen hesitated. No, we can't wait any longer. Soon, Gwen realized the monster was almost at the front of the train. A bridge lay a few miles ahead. If an accident caused the train to abruptly stop on the bridge and overturn, the entire train would likely be wiped out. Without hesitation, Gwen suddenly shot out a stream of spider silk, using it to propel her towards the monster. Roar! The monster, though not very intelligent, possessed a powerful sense. As Gwen approached, it suddenly turned and lunged at Gwen with a punch. Bang! Hastily, Gwen could only lift a foot, colliding with the monster's fist. The next moment, the monster stumbled back a few steps. Gwen, using the momentum, rolled several times in the air, landing on the carriage. This thing's so tough, Gwen gritted her teeth. The collision of force nearly broke her leg. Roar! The monster roared, slamming its fist into the train's roof, tearing through the metal. No, a hapless person, caught just below the monster, let out a scream of agony. But the monster ignored it, crawling down onto the roof, plucking it from the train with its hands, and then slamming it down on Gwen. Oh no, Gwen watched, unable to stop it. Watching the passengers being flung at her, she could only shoot out strands of spider silk, dodging the blows. Damn it. Again, Gwen had just freed the passenger with the help of the silk when her spider sense activated. The next moment, the monster grabbed several passengers and flung them towards her like cannonballs. Gwen was left struggling, trying to save each one as they were flung towards her. Huh, it's finally over, Gwen breathed a sigh of relief after narrowly saving all the passengers. Turning, she discovered the monster had already reached the front of the train, perched on the window, peering in curiously. No, Gwen quickly ran towards the monster. But it was still too late. Apparently, it hadn't found what it wanted, and the monster became furious. It leaped up, then swooped down, crushing the control car at the front of the train. Without further ado, it leaped off into the distance. What should I do? The control car had been completely destroyed, but the train's powertrain was still running at full speed. The train couldn't stop or steer on its own. Determined to save everyone inside, Gwen could only watch the monster flee. Then, quickly reaching the front of the train, he looked at the crushed control car, his gaze growing resolute. Standing in front of the intact second car, Gwen rapidly shot several streams of spider silk towards the buildings on either side. The next second, the incredibly intense pull nearly ripped Gwen in two. Ah! Gwen cried out in agony, unable to contain her pain. Yet, her unwavering willpower kept her clinging, not letting go of the spider silk. The immense power of her spider genes and her extraordinary resolve unleashed at that moment. A creaking sound. The immense force left distinct marks on the metal carriage. Bang, bang, bang. Yet, the silk continued to snap, sending a shiver through Gwen's heart as she persevered. Suddenly, she spotted a figure appearing above the bridge 1,000 meters ahead. Great! Is he here? Just as Gwen felt excited, she was suddenly met with a frightening laugh. Hey, since you're trying so hard, I'll make it a little harder, as the eerie laughter echoed through the air. A round, pumpkin-like ball, gleaming green, slowly landed on the bridge, bouncing a few times. Then, with a loud bang, it suddenly exploded. Fuck! Looking at the broken bridge and the figure disappearing into the night sky, Gwen's heart was broken. Chapter 63 Daddy offers sacrifice to the heaven, with boundless magic power. But then something even more devastating happened. Just as she was desperately trying to stop the train from crashing onto a bridge miles away, destroyed by some unknown villain, a green figure flashed by. It was the monster that had just fled, now back again. Furthermore, the returning monster leaped directly onto the roof of the train and sprinted towards the front, seemingly targeting Gwen, who was struggling to stop the train. However, the destroyed bridge was only a few miles away. If the train couldn't be stopped quickly, the fate of all the passengers on board would be jeopardized. No, I must persevere. Even though Gwen's intense spider sense urged her to release the silk thread, her immense will resisted. Soon, the green monster had returned to its current position at the front of the train. It slowly crept over the carriage and tilted its head downward. Its bloodshot eyes and ferocious face, filled with madness, met Gwen's gaze. The scene was like a classic scene from a movie. It was just Beauty and Spider-Man kissing upside down. But now it was Beauty and the Beast, a passionate scene. Roar. The monster roared, its foul breath causing Gwen to turn her head away. The next moment, her spider sense, already frantically warning her, intensified. No, with immense willpower, Gwen resisted the assault of her spider sense while continuing to tug at the silk. For the lives of everyone in the car, she gave up on running. The enraged monster raised its massive arms without hesitation. With claws sharp enough to shred a metal roof, it slowly reached for Gwen's body, gently slicing through her abdomen like a cat playing with a mouse. With a swish, 3 massive wounds tore through Gwen's tights, tearing through her skin. Bright red blood gushed out. Ugh, Gwen endured the intense pain. In the moment the monster toyed with her, letting down her guard, she used the silk's power to suddenly raise her legs and deliver a powerful kick to the monster's face, sending it flying. The immense force sent the monster flying dozens of meters, crashing heavily against the railroad tracks. Roar. However, the blow ultimately inflicted little damage on the monster. Instead, it utterly enraged it. With a furious roar, the monster leaped to its feet, swinging its massive fist and charging straight at Gwen, determined to crush the troublemaker. Sorry, Even before the monster's fist was about to strike, Gwen refused to let go of the silk and flee. Instead, she tightened her grip and silently closed her eyes. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, the sound of propellers and machine guns erupted, causing Gwen to open her eyes in surprise. A police helicopter suddenly appeared above the train, its machine guns blazing with flames, raining down bullets on the monster's body like they were free. Don't be afraid, Spider-Man. This time, we're here to help you, a voice Gwen knew all too well rang out. The New York police had finally arrived at the crucial moment. Chief George, our guns aren't working, the officer, hovering less than a few dozen meters above the train and firing at the monster, said helplessly to George. Their machine gun bullets repeatedly pierced the monster's body, but they were unable to cause any real damage to its thick skin. Oh no. That monster's angry and coming for us. Instead, it attracted the monster's attention. That's exactly what we need to do. Get out of here and lure the monster away. George's eyes were determined. And he gave the order without hesitation. Oh no. Chief, get out of the way. However, just as the helicopter turned, preparing to lure the monster away, a broken metal rod suddenly shot towards the helicopter cabin like a javelin. Fortunately, a nearby officer was quick-witted and jumped on George, otherwise the rapidly approaching metal rod would have pierced George's body instantly. Although he avoided the direct attack, the metal rod, with its tremendous impact, still penetrated the helicopter's fuselage, passing through the top and disrupting the spinning propeller. Instantly, the helicopter, deprived of lift, plummeted downward. No, Gwen cried out in despair, but there was no time to rescue the downed helicopter. Furthermore, there was a whole train of passengers waiting for her help. Yet, she knew full well that her biological father was aboard that helicopter. The pain of impending loss and the intense resentment seemed to unleash Gwen's physical potential. The terrifying burst of power actually caused the speeding train to noticeably slow down. Everyone in the falling helicopter felt the onslaught of death. Their hearts were filled with resentment, yet they felt helpless. Chief George, looking at the officer beside him, stunned by the sudden death, his gaze hardened. Roar, the monster, having struck, roared with excitement. But the next moment, its cruel gaze fixed on Gwen once again, and it leaped back to its feet, charging towards her. Damn monster, this time, Gwen didn't close her eyes, but instead stared at the attacking creature with furious eyes. Bang! Just as the punch was about to land on Gwen's body, a green figure suddenly lunged from the side, instantly tumbling into a ball with the monster, a grappling struggle ensuing. The faint, pale moonlight cast a shadow over the green figure, and Gwen only had time to see it. It looked like a giant lizard. Lizardman, Gwen didn't have time to think, turning her grief into strength. After the spider silk in her hands had all been torn apart, she unhesitatingly shot out several more strands. The immense pulling force threatened to tear her apart, her arms nearly dislocated, and blood flowed profusely from the wounds in her abdomen. Even with such severe injuries, Gwen refused to give up. Her immense willpower, transformed into strength, actually slowed the speeding train. Finally, with Gwen's almost frantic roar, the train finally came to a slowing halt before approaching the destroyed bridge. Great! We're saved, Spider-Man, well done! Countless passengers cheered excitedly, celebrating Spider-Man, but even more so, celebrating themselves. Father, however, Gwen had no intention of accepting the passengers' gratitude. With every last ounce of her willpower, she persevered and fought to keep from fainting. Slowly shooting out her web, she raced towards the helicopter's downfall. However, upon reaching the crash site, Gwen watched the helicopter, now engulfed in flames, and was instantly overcome with grief. Spider-Man, you're so great. You saved everyone. Suddenly, a police officer, gazing at Gwen with admiration, exclaimed excitedly. But I couldn't save your chief. The officer's words did little to cheer Gwen up. She had saved everyone, but not her own father. Chief? He's not dead. He saved us all, but, hearing Gwen's sorrowful words, the officer quickly replied, his expression becoming strange. What? Your chief isn't dead. Gwen was so surprised that he felt like he was dreaming. But he seems to have turned into a monster, too. However, the officer's next words made Gwen's heart leap again. He turned and looked at the lizard man battling the monster. It turned out to be his father. P.S. Please read this, give me your monthly votes, and recommend me. Thank you for your support. Chapter 64, Moonlight's Lament. Upon learning that the lizard man was her father, Gwen was pleasantly surprised that he hadn't died. But the next moment, seeing her father, pinned down by another monster, blood oozing from his body, a sense of foreboding washed over her. No. Don't give me hope. Make me despair again. Gathering her last ounce of strength, she charged towards the two battling monsters. However, the burst of potential she had just experienced had already pushed her body to its limits. If it weren't for her concern for her father, she would have likely fainted from exhaustion. She stumbled forward, her pace even slower than that of an ordinary human. Although both were monsters transformed through potions, the serum they derived from was different. The Lizard Man potion was simply a common one, crafted by Professor Connors using lizard DNA. While it could grant humans immense power and transform them into Lizard Man, it had a fatal side effect. After becoming a Lizard Man, their human genes would gradually break down, ultimately leading to their complete death. So, in this moment, Director George was undoubtedly sacrificing his own life for the lives of others. Thankfully, my sacrifice was worth it. Even as he felt the excruciating pain of his genetic makeup crumbling, Commissioner George finally saw Spider-Man live up to expectations and successfully save the entire carload. At that moment, though he died, he had no regrets. Knowing he couldn't survive his transformation, Commissioner George ignored the constant damage he sustained from the monster and fought it fiercely. Even if the monster's claws tore through his skin, he would still deliver a powerful blow. Injury for injury, life for life. Hopefully, after I'm done, they'll be able to subdue this monster more easily. This was the only conviction in Commissioner George's heart as his consciousness faded. Gradually, the side effects of the regeneration potion became increasingly apparent. His genetic makeup continued to collapse. The immense power that once filled his body gradually faded. Boom. Finally, Commissioner George could no longer withstand the immense power before him, and was struck by a punch in the chest. Crack. His ribs shattered instantly, as if a hand had grasped his heart. He was flung nearly 100 meters away, landing right in front of the stumbling Gwen. No, Gwen cried out in despair, her pace suddenly accelerating, but her legs gave way and she fell to the ground. She ignored him, crawling forward with her hands and feet, toward the Lizard Man lying in a pool of blood. Finally, Gwen reached him. Unconcerned with the Lizard Man's hideous appearance, covered in sickening green blood, Gwen embraced him with all her might. Then, for the first time in front of others, she personally tore off her spider mask. Gwen, so it really is you. In his final moments, before he lost consciousness, Chief George saw his daughter, as if in a dream. Father, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lie to you. Gwen's eyes filled with tears, filled with helplessness and sorrow. Cough cough, it's okay, Gwen. He coughed up blood, his face lit with relief. No, I can't die a monster. Seeing his beloved in his final moments seemed to unleash an immense will on George. He didn't want to die a monster in front of his beloved daughter. Instantly, his lizard-like form began to fade, slowly transforming back into normal human. With difficulty, George raised his arm. Watching himself transform from monster to human, no regrets in his eyes. Dear Gwen, you did the right thing. With great power comes great responsibility. His affectionate gaze, for the first time, affirmed Gwen's previous actions. Roar. But just as he was about to utter those wise words, an untimely roar interrupted him. The next moment, the monster, ignored in the distance, suddenly rushed towards them. Gwen, go. In this critical moment, worry for his daughter forced George to unleash his last bit of strength. Slowly standing up, he faced the oncoming monster fearlessly in his human form. The faint moonlight cast a melancholy hue on George's slender figure. His hunched back, however, made Gwen feel incredibly majestic. Father, no. Gwen's desperate cry seemed to have an effect. Just as the monster was about to charge at her father, a figure suddenly appeared before them. The oppressive presence, at that moment, seemed like a benevolent god. Its cape fluttered in the wind, seemingly dispelling all fear. Well, I'm not so hard-hearted after all. With a single punch, Peter sent the attacking monster tumbling into a dance of blood. Slowly, Peter turned and looked at George and Gwen. Great. Seeing Superman approach, George instantly lost his last vestiges of willpower and collapsed to the ground. The pale moonlight cast a mournful chorus over his shattered form, as if the moon itself were mourning. Father, at that moment, Gwen felt no joy at Superman's defeat of the monster, only the sorrow of losing her father. Here, there might be some side effects. Whether you use it or not is up to you. Peter observed everything calmly, but he couldn't help himself. He pulled out a fluorescent green potion and dropped it in front of Gwen. Then, without hesitation, he soared into the sky and vanished. What is this? Gwen picked up the fluorescent potion from the ground and wanted to ask what it was. But the moment she looked up, Superman was gone. Side effects. Gwen glanced at the potion in her hand, then at her father's corpse. Her gaze instantly firmed. Slowly raising her hand, Peter's figure disappeared, reappearing in less than 10 seconds in an uninhabited desert. However, what had once been hundreds of kilometers of desert was now a vast military base beneath his feet. Listen, everyone down there. Please drop everything you are holding and leave the base immediately. Remember, you only have 10 minutes. Do not attempt to take the research materials with you. Otherwise, you will suffer the consequences. A commanding voice echoed throughout the base, instantly setting the entire military base in a frenzy. Who on earth is it? How dare they break into our military base? A general with gray hair and sturdy shoulders questioned his soldiers. General, it seems to be Mr. Superman. The soldiers discovered the figure above the military base through satellites and detection equipment. General, what should we do now? Hearing that it was Superman, all the soldiers present fell silent. According to what he said, organize the evacuation of all personnel as soon as possible and protect those scientific researchers. After pondering for a while with an extremely serious expression, the general reluctantly gave the order. Also, remember, no one is allowed to take any research materials with them. Chapter 65 Solar Flare. At that moment, the entire base sprang into action. Besides the necessary military personnel, dozens of researchers were also present. After all, this military base had originally been established to research a specific technology. However, now, they were forced to abandon all existing research data and evacuate as quickly as possible. 10 minutes wasn't short, but for an entire base, it certainly seemed a bit too short. Fortunately, the highest command had already ordered that no materials or equipment be taken with them, only the personnel would suffice. Several helicopters took off in quick succession, escorting the researchers away at top speed. General, we're running out of helicopters. Even if we request assistance now, it might be too late. What should we do? As all the researchers and some of the armed personnel departed by helicopter, some soldiers remained, and there were not enough helicopters to carry them. Pass my order. From now on, all personnel are to evacuate the military base on foot. Take nothing but your weapons and communication equipment. 7 minutes left. Everyone must stay 1 kilometer away from this base. The general had been observing Superman floating in the air. He desperately hoped that Superman would suddenly smile and say it was all a joke. However, reality was harsh. He knew this wasn't a joke. He was definitely targeting the research project they were conducting. At this moment, they were the only ones who could save them. Even if they notified their superiors, they wouldn't get any help. Even if Superman denied them time to evacuate and destroyed the base in an instant, their superiors wouldn't dare publicly condemn Superman. To protect Superman's reputation, they might even falsely accuse them of conducting unscrupulous experiments or even treason. Ross, you've really screwed me this time. The general regretted having listened to Ross's instigation, participating in a disaster relief project and conducting such secret research here. Taking one last look at the now empty military base, the general reluctantly abandoned everything and followed his soldiers out on foot. Soon, the 10 minutes Peter had allotted had expired. The next moment, Peter, without hesitation, a brilliant golden energy emanated from the small star on his chest, gradually flowing through his entire body. The golden light emanating from him grew increasingly dazzling. In a matter of seconds, it was as if a brand new star were rising above the military base. General, look, what's that? About 2 kilometers from the base, the soldiers evacuating on foot were still desperately running when a sudden cry of alarm rang out, forcing everyone to turn around. Oh no! Everyone, get down! But with just one glance, the general, taking in the dazzling light, like a star, issued a hasty command. Whoosh! As everyone scrambled to get down, the sun-like light suddenly blazed to its fullest, as if a small nuclear bomb had detonated above the military base. The radiant light also unleashed a terrifying heat wave. The nearest military base below was instantly melted by the tens of thousands of degrees Celsius. Even more terrifying, along with the blazing light, a terrifying particle storm instantly engulfed the entire base. After a few seconds, the shimmering light in the sky gradually dissipated. And above, the vast military base had completely vanished. Only a vast crater, nearly 1,000 meters in diameter, remained. Within the pit, molten iron and various liquids formed from melted sand mingled, creating a bizarre spectacle of shimmering, multicolored light, like a lake. Meanwhile, the soldiers, sprawled in the sand, their bodies buried beneath it, finally slowly climbed to their feet. Even from the great distance, the intense heat of the sudden burst of light scorched their uniforms to a crisp. Perhaps even their backs had been burned. "General, we've lost contact with the outside world. That flash of light just now seems to have disrupted the electromagnetic waves in this area, even instantly destroying our communications equipment." After checking the equipment, the communications officer hurried over to report to his superiors. Was that a solar flare? The general didn't answer the communications officer, but instead stared at the distant sky, muttering to himself. Surprisingly, this guy seemed to have read Superman comics and knew that Superman could cause small solar flares. "Don't worry, this is normal. I think the higher-ups will soon find out what's going on and send someone to pick us up." The general quickly regained his composure and offered reassurance. However, there was one thing he didn't say: the outcome might not be good. After the solar flare destroyed the military base, Peter flew back to the Antarctic base. "Everyone, please pause. Put down your work. I have something to tell you." Upon arriving at the base, Peter spoke without hesitation, his voice instantly echoing throughout the base. In a laboratory, Reed and Dr. Pym were discussing Pym particles and portal technology. They both had a peculiar feeling that perhaps these two technologies could synergize to form something even greater. What does Mr. Superman want to tell us? Peter's sudden words caused them to exchange glances, their eyes filled with confusion. "Don't worry, we'll find out once we get there." Although Dr. Pym had been somewhat resentful of having been brought to this special base today, semi-coerced by Superman, he had met many incredibly brilliant individuals and witnessed incredible technology. However, this unique opportunity had allowed him to meet many incredibly talented individuals and gain a temporary acceptance of the place and the present moment. His resentment towards Superman had almost completely dissipated. Soon, everyone put down their ongoing experiments and descended upon the simple living room in the center of the base. "Everyone, I've summoned you here because I need your opinion on something," Peter said slowly, his face calm and his tone gentle. "Let me first apologize to everyone. Most of you were kidnapped by me, taken away from your families and loved ones, to conduct scientific research in this dark place, so today, I'm asking for your consent. You can choose to let me take you back." Peter's slow words instantly filled everyone with excitement. "Great! We can finally get out of this hellhole. Thank you, Mr. Superman." The sudden and overwhelming surprise almost made them forget everything. It was Peter who had brought them to this dark place in the first place. They actually expressed their gratitude to Peter. However, only Dr. Pym had a strange expression on his face. He seemed to have only been here for less than a day. Even a temporary worker wouldn't be fooled like this. "But besides this choice, you have another one." Looking at the surprised crowd, whose curiosity was ignited by his words, Peter slowly continued. "Or, you can choose to join the company I am about to establish. Of course, I am not the person in charge of this company. Dr. Otto, I hope you can set up this company on my behalf." Ignoring the surprised expressions in everyone's eyes, Peter looked at Otto on the side and spoke slowly. Chapter 66 I Am Iron Man. Start a company? I'm afraid, Dr. Otto was completely unprepared for Peter's sudden attack and was about to refuse. After all, he had devoted the first half of his life to his dreams and had no experience in managing a company. Moreover, this was no ordinary company. The man behind it was Mr. Superman. Dr. Otto, don't underestimate yourself. I believe you will be an excellent company manager. In fact, Peter certainly wouldn't start a company himself. It was too arduous. However, there was no better choice among the people present. Dr. Pym was old, and his original company was about to be taken over. Reed, while smart, was definitely not a good choice to manage a company. Only Dr. Otto, although he had no experience in management in this universe, had founded Parker Industries as the ultimate Spider-Man in another universe, making himself one of the world's richest men. Therefore, Peter preferred to believe that this universe's Dr. Octopus also had the talent for management. Well, Mr. Superman, thank you for your trust in me. Peter's help had given Dr. Otto the opportunity to fulfill his lifelong dream, and in the spotlight of the world. Dr. Otto was filled with gratitude. He no longer refused, though a flicker of worry crossed his face. But, Mr. Superman, if we want to start a company, We'll probably need a significant amount of initial capital. Don't worry, initial capital isn't a problem. Peter glanced at Princess Shuri, then slowly looked away. I just saved a cocky guy's life. I'm sure he'd be happy to spend a few $100 million to thank me. A reassuring smile played on Peter's face. Meanwhile, Tony, having notified his crew and cleared the scene, had already flown back to his villa. However, something so significant wouldn't be so easily brushed aside. Senior SHIELD agent Coulson, who had been keeping tabs on Tony, immediately received the news and arrived at his villa with Tony's secretary, Pepper Potts. Mr. Stark, I want to know exactly what just happened. What's with that equipment you're wearing? Only by doing so can our Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Agency help you completely resolve this situation. Tony and Obadiah's battle took place on a crowded downtown street. Although the appearance of the monster sent many pedestrians fleeing in panic, some still saw and even photographed Tony in his armor. Therefore, to avoid public exposure, Tony had no choice but to cooperate with SHIELD to eliminate any future risks. Sorry, I've told you everything I know. As for the equipment I'm wearing, that's not something your Homeland Defense Agency can get involved in. Damn, your name is so hard to pronounce. Fuck, who's got me behind this? Tony, sitting on the sofa, leisurely explaining everything to Coulson, suddenly sneezed. Anyway, I hope you can handle everything as you promised. Tony slowly picked up his glass and took a sip, suppressing the chill that had settled in his heart. Mr. Stark, in that case, I'll go back and report to my superiors. Seeing that there was nothing more to dig up, Coulson stood up and prepared to leave. By the way, Mr. Stark, we've already dispatched personnel to handle any information that might have exposed your identity tonight. You may need to hold a press conference tomorrow to confirm your alibi. Before leaving, Coulson warned Tony. Hey, these guys, just like government officials, are full of lies. I was there tonight. Tony watched Coulson leave, a hint of sarcasm playing on his face. Tony, tonight was truly dangerous. Fortunately, we have Mr. Superman, Pepper Potts said, looking at Tony with concern. Thankful. Don't worry, Pepper. Even if that guy isn't here, I'll be fine. After all, the armor I developed isn't made of paper. Tony sensed Pepper's concern for him, and a warm feeling welled up in his heart. He still proudly declared that he could defeat Obadiah even without Peter. By the way, regarding the Obadiah incident, set up an investigation team as soon as possible. Although Obadiah was dead, he had left behind a mess. Starting tomorrow, there would likely be unrest within Stark Industries. But this is a good thing, Pepper. Take advantage of this turmoil to buy back the company's shares as soon as possible. After this, I can't hand a company over to anyone else. After the Obadiah incident, Tony seemed to have difficulty trusting others and was ready to take full control of the company himself. You're the boss. I'll do whatever you say. At this moment, Pepper regained her image as an independent and strong woman. But, regarding tomorrow's press conference, don't worry, I'll be there in person, Tony replied, standing up from the sofa and heading towards the basement. Last night, New York City witnessed two horrific incidents in quick succession. Two monsters attacked the city. Fortunately, Mr. Superman and a mysterious figure clad in an unknown metal armor were present and ultimately saved innocent people. According to some reports, the suddenly appearing monster was actually Mr. Obadiah Stane, vice president of Stark Industries, and the mysterious figure was none other than the renowned billionaire Mr. Tony Stark. Spider-Man, second only to the great Mr. Superman, is a true hero who protects the citizens of New York. The military reports that an intern experimenter violated regulations at a military base in an uninhabited desert area, leading to its destruction. Fortunately, no one was killed, and the military is investigating the details. The next morning, New York City was in a state of shock. Less than a month had passed, and for the second time, New York City was attacked by terrifying monsters. This time, two appeared at once, one in the city, the other in the suburbs. However, the suburban monster caused even greater damage than the one in the city. If Spider-Man hadn't appeared and saved an entire train, this would have been the worst disaster in New York City's history. This time, the media finally vindicated Spider-Man, calling him the most popular hero after Superman. Even the Daily Bugle, always a naysayer, refrained from smearing Spider-Man and instead reported the story normally. Of course, this news only caught the attention of the general public. The media, however, was drawn to the upcoming press conference for Stark Industries. Nearly all the New York media had already arrived, awaiting Tony Stark, the president of Stark Industries, who was about to speak and clarify the events of the previous night. Backstage, Pepper Potts and Coulson were giving Tony instructions on his upcoming speech. Mr. Stark just read from the script. "We've already taken care of everything," Coulson said calmly. "Huh? I was on vacation on a deserted island last night? You're really good at making things up." Tony glanced at the slip of paper in his hand, speechless, muttering, "Iron Man? That name sounds good." Soon, Tony finished his makeup and slowly made his way from backstage to the press conference. "Mr. Stark, some people say that a mysterious man last night was you. Do you have anything to say about this?" The moment Tony took the stage, the entire scene fell into chaos. "Everyone, please be quiet. Regarding what happened last night, regarding some people calling me a superhero, no one calls you a superhero," a female reporter with long legs directly refuted. "Ahem, okay, in fact, I am Iron Man," Tony, his eyes gradually firmed, announced without hesitation. Wow, the scene was shocked, and all the reporters stood up. "Yes, he is the Iron Man." Swish. Suddenly, a sound rang out in the sky, and Superman's figure appeared above the press conference site. "P.S. Thank you all for your recommendation votes and monthly tickets. Please read on." Chapter 67 Avengers Project. Superman appeared and confirmed Tony's words. Those who had been skeptical at the scene now completely believed the shocking news. Instantly, the entire venue erupted in chaos, as countless reporters frantically made calls to relay the shocking news back to headquarters in New York. Taking advantage of the reporters' panic, Tony had slipped backstage. He'd only just announced his identity as Iron Man on a whim. After all, the two previous superheroes, Superman and Spider-Man, had concealed their identities. Only he, the great Tony Stark, had braved the public eye and openly acknowledged his superhero status. Wouldn't his fame then be even more recognizable than that damned Superman's? He hadn't expected that guy to even show up. "Tony, you?" As soon as he returned backstage, Pepper Potts glared at him in disbelief. "Ahem, we'll talk about this later. Send a car to get me out of here." Tony seemed anxious, eager to leave as soon as possible. Of course, there was something he kept secret. "That guy's coming over, it's definitely up to no good." Tony's premonition was indeed correct. "What's up, Mr. Iron Man? You seem a bit impatient to leave." Peter had suddenly appeared beside them. "Hello, Mr. Superman." It was the first time Pepper had seen Peter in person, and her greeting was a bit apprehensive. "Nice to meet you, Ms. Pepper Potts," Peter politely said, then turned his gaze back to Tony. "Since you're in such a hurry to leave, I could give you a ride." No, Tony's refusal had no effect. In an instant, the two figures vanished from Pepper's sight, leaving only Tony's panicked and unwilling voice echoing. 10 seconds later, two figures suddenly appeared in Tony's villa. "I am Iron Man? Do you think you're the best of this world?" He, Mr. Superman. As soon as the two figures appeared, a black, salted egg-headed man, who blended perfectly into the corner, slowly emerged. "Who are you? Why are you breaking into my villa?" Tony subconsciously tapped the nano-storage device on his chest. As the nano-armor covered his entire body, Tony transformed into a laser cannon, pointing it at the stranger before him. "Is this the portable, powerful suit?" At that moment, Nick Fury's face showed no fear at all. Instead, his gaze blazed at Tony's suit, as if he wanted to discern the incredible technology within. "Let me introduce myself. I'm Nick Fury, Director of the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Agency. However, we've now, following your advice, renamed it SHIELD." Ignoring Tony's wary gaze, Nick Fury slowly walked towards the two men and introduced himself. "Oh, so you're Coulson's boss." Tony momentarily lowered his guard and retracted his nano-armor. "But, aren't you breaking into my villa just to show off your infiltration skills as a Secret Service chief?" Tony said as he leisurely walked to the wine cabinet, pulled out a bottle of fine red wine, and poured them both. Nick Fury took a seat across from Tony and Peter without hesitation, then downed the wine Tony had poured. He then stared at Tony and Peter and said slowly, "Of course not. I'm here to discuss the creation of the Avengers." "Your Avengers? It sounds like a boring band to me." "Sorry, I'm not interested." Listening to Nick Fury's introduction to the Avengers, Tony declined without hesitation. "Mr. Superman, are you interested? If you join, you'll definitely become the leader of all the members, and the world will become a safer place." Nick Fury's original goal was only Tony himself. But now, Tony wasn't important. If he could get Superman on board, wouldn't he be incredibly successful? I'm sorry, but I'm not interested either. After all, I'm not into revenge. Peter took a sip of Tony's prized wine and declined. Because my enemies will never see the light of day again, the words he spoke next sent a chill down the spines of the two men, including Tony. Okay, well, since neither of you has any immediate interest in joining, I'll take my leave. Nick Fury tactfully prepared to leave, knowing Superman wouldn't approach Tony for no reason. Goodbye, I won't see you off. As the host, Tony had no intention of seeing him off. Nick Fury didn't hesitate, quickly exiting the villa. Once outside, he glanced back at the villa and pulled out an old-fashioned cell phone. Instead of making a call, he typed a text message. Natasha, put aside your current mission. I need you to infiltrate Stark Industries as soon as possible and investigate. After sending the message, Nick Fury unhesitatingly boarded a long-awaited helicopter and departed. That annoying guy's gone. Now you can tell me what brings you back again. Watching Nick Fury leave, Tony asked Peter directly without hesitation. Don't be so cold. I just helped you last night, saving your life from your dear uncle, so, can you please show me some proper gratitude? Peter said slowly, his words causing Tony's expression to change, then relax. Okay, how much money do you need? Tony replied that anything that could be solved with money was no problem. Not much, just around that amount. Peter slowly held up a finger. 10 million, Tony said uncertainly. Seeing Peter remain silent, he continued to speculate with a grim expression. Isn't it 100 million? Great Mr. Iron Man, is your life only worth 100 million? Damn it, 1 billion? You might as well rob. You're such a robber. Tony's expression darkened even further. 10 billion was no small sum for him. Don't slander me. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Peter smiled, but that smile made Tony feel like he deserved a beating. Of course, that was if he could beat Peter. Alright, 10 billion is 10 billion. Give me your account. Finally, Tony had no choice but to compromise. Just transfer it directly to Dr. Otto's account. You should know him, right? Peter was still underage and didn't have his own account. Even if he did, he couldn't tell Tony. Okay, you've done the blackmail. If you have nothing else, leave now. I hope you don't come to me again. Tony was helpless. Sure enough, when this guy came to him on his own, it was no good. Bye, dear Mr. Iron Man. With the company's startup capital in hand, Peter had no intention of staying. With a wave of his hand, he disappeared from the villa. Damn robber, Tony cursed through gritted teeth. Jarvis, transfer 2 billion from my personal account to Dr. Otto's account, Tony spoke slowly, instructing Jarvis. I hope this guy won't bother me again, sir. The transfer of $2 billion has been completed. In addition, your previous search for information about magic has made great progress. Would you like to take a look? What? Let me see. Tony became very excited in an instant. He didn't expect that he would actually gain something. Sir, this is the latest news from Nepal. The explorers found a video there. After judgment, there is no sign of any modification. As Jarvis finished speaking, a virtual projection video instantly appeared in front of Tony. A person in a yellow monk's robe rotated his hand slightly in front of him, and a halo shining with golden light appeared out of thin air. The next moment, she walked directly into the halo, and then the halo dissipated, disappearing along with the person. Is this really magic? Chapter 68 Successfully Changing Tony's Fate. The next day, in a small private plane over Nepal, Tony said to the pilot, then opened the rear hatch and jumped out. Mr. Stark, you forgot your parachute. Tony had already jumped out of the plane amidst the pilot's anxious voice. However, for Iron Man, it made no difference whether he had a parachute or not. Nanosuits rapidly enveloped his body. The next moment, flames erupted from beneath his feet, instantly hurtling toward a small town below. In front of a dilapidated-looking wooden door. Jarvis, are you sure this is the place? Tony stared at the shabby door with a hint of disbelief. Yes, sir. The investigators, after some considerable effort, have found the answer, and it all points to this place. Well, let's hope those wizards' magical prowess is better than their door repairing skills. With a glimmer of hope, Tony slowly raised his hand, ready to knock. Creak. But before his hand could touch the door, he realized it had been opened from the inside. His hand nearly slapped the man's face. Come with me, the man said in a cold voice, then turned and left. Huh? This guy seems even more arrogant than me. Tony looked at the aloof man, a little surprised. But he followed him in. Creak. As Tony walked in, the dilapidated wooden door slowly closed on its own. The throngs of people on the street seemed to have never noticed the dilapidated door. Jarvis? Why didn't I see such a place when I was in heaven just now? After entering, Tony realized that the environment here was very different from what he had imagined. The quaint buildings easily gave off a sense of paradise. Sir, this place seems to be outside the real world. It's impossible to detect its existence in the real world. Jarvis's answer left Tony incredulous. Could there be such a strange space outside the real world? It seems this is indeed a magical sanctuary. Before arriving, Tony would have doubted the existence of magic here. But at this moment, he was almost certain that magic was real. Magic? I hope it can shock me more than technology, Tony thought to himself, quickly following the aloof figure in front of him. Soon, led by the figure, Tony arrived at a vast hall. In the center, a massive metal incense burner emanated wisps of green smoke, giving the smell an ethereal feeling. Even his mood calmed down considerably. However, Tony couldn't maintain his composure. Before him, besides the yellow-robed figure he had seen in the video yesterday, sat a figure he felt incredibly familiar with, sitting across from him. Mr. Stark, I thought you'd come earlier. The familiar figure slowly turned around. It was Peter, whom Tony had just met yesterday. Why are you here? Tony's face was filled with shock. He hadn't expected that damn Superman to arrive before him. Welcome to Kamartaj, Mr. Stark. Please take a seat. Ignoring Tony's stunned expression, the bald woman in yellow monk's robes, with a face of androgynous elegance, spoke softly. Thank you. Tony finally recovered from his shock, walked over to Peter, and slowly sat down. Mr. Stark, I understand your purpose, the Ancient One said slowly, pouring Tony a cup of tea. But are you truly certain you want to embark on this path of no return through magic? The next moment, the Ancient One's expression grew serious, his gentle voice piercing Tony's very core. Yes, do I really want to abandon science? To cultivate that elusive magic, Tony was undoubtedly torn. Initially, he'd searched for information on magic solely to use it in an attempt to defeat Superman. Unfortunately, that person had arrived before him. It seemed he wasn't afraid of magic's weaknesses. So, should he continue studying magic? Ancient One, I think you should choose someone else. This guy doesn't seem like the right person to inherit the title of Sorcerer Supreme. Peter, watching Tony's turmoil, added insult to injury. Who says I'm not a good candidate to study magic? I'm the world's most brilliant genius. Perhaps Peter's words finally reassured Tony. Mysterious magic? And it seems I could inherit the seemingly awesome position of Sorcerer Supreme. Peter's words gave Tony a unique insight. If he studied magic, he might inherit a supreme position. Although he didn't yet know what the title of Sorcerer Supreme entailed, at that moment, he finally solidified his resolve to study magic. Besides, who says studying magic means giving up science? Magic combined with technology is quite promising, isn't it? Magic, like the technology you know, is simply a special way for humans to understand the nature of the world and the truth of the universe. As Tony decided to study magic, the Ancient One smiled and slowly explained the origins and uses of magic. The essence of magic is actually like a special language. Magic spells, like computer source code, communicate and mobilize energies from other dimensions, creating incredible phenomena in the real world, like this. Following the introduction, the Ancient One suddenly raised his hands. With a special gesture, a golden beam of energy instantly appeared before Tony and Peter. Is this magic? At that moment, Tony was completely captivated by the wondrous scene before him, his eyes filled with intense curiosity. Without a doubt, magic had opened a new door to the essence of the universe. While it sounds nice, Marvel magic has long since gone off the deep end. Peter observed the faint pattern between the Ancient One's brows as she cast her spell. He knew it was a remnant of her plundering of the Dark Dimension's energy. Magic in the Marvel world is essentially a form of borrowing and lending. Mages borrow energy from other dimensions, only to return it in another form. Only someone like the Ancient One, backed by a powerful god of magic, could have the wherewithal to stand up to Dormammu, the ruler of the Dark Dimension. Jarvis, have you recorded all her movements? Meanwhile, Tony, already deeply curious about magic, unhesitatingly asked Jarvis to record the Ancient One's movements. I believe you've already gained a basic understanding of magic. However, if you wish to pursue more advanced techniques, I'm afraid you'll need to stay here for a while. Quickly, the Ancient One waved his hand to dispel the shimmering golden magic before him, then stared at Tony and spoke slowly. No problem. I have everything I need, except time. Besides, I don't think magic is that difficult. Tony was confident. Even if his aptitude for learning magic wasn't great, he still had Jarvis, his incredible cheat. In that case, Master Caecilius, please take Mr. Stark to his room to rest, the Ancient One said slowly to the impassive mage who had brought Tony in. Goodbye, Venerable Ancient One. Tony glanced at Peter beside him, then, without hesitation, followed the impassive figure out of the hall. Mr. Superman or Mr. Peter Parker? Are you here just to confirm whether he will pursue a path of magic? As Tony left, the Ancient One looked at Peter with a hint of inquiry. Of course, it's more than that. I'm actually quite curious about magic. Peter's words were certainly not his inner thoughts. He came here simply to confirm whether this would count as changing Tony's future. Congratulations to the host for initially changing Tony Stark's fate and receiving a reward. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69, Rushing to the Sun. Ancient One, since this fellow has chosen to remain here to study magic, I will take my leave. Having already determined that the system had preliminarily altered Tony's fate, Peter naturally decided not to linger and departed immediately. Do you want me to send you? The Ancient One maintained a kind smile throughout. No, I can do it myself. Peter stood up without hesitation and, accompanied by the Ancient One, walked out of the hall and soared into the sky. Although this place was located in a special magical dimension beyond the real world, it seemed completely unobstructed to Peter. Venerable Ancient One, the newcomer has been accommodated. As the Ancient One looked up at Peter's disappearing figure, the impassive mage from earlier returned with Tony. Thank you for your trouble, Master Caecilius. The Ancient One slowly turned and expressed his gratitude to Caecilius. Venerable Ancient One, why has Mr. Superman come this time? After a moment's hesitation, Caecilius couldn't help but ask curiously. After all, their mage community and Superman had never before had any contact. He's only here to confirm certain things, the Ancient One said slowly, looking back at Peter, whose figure had long since vanished. Alright, let's not talk about him anymore. Master Caecilius, if I remember correctly, you've been in Camartage for 2 years now. The Ancient One turned to Caecilius, his eyes as if recollecting something. Indeed, Venerable, I also want to thank you for taking me in when I was so devastated 2 years ago, introducing me to mysterious magic and opening the door to another world for me. Although Caecilius's expression remained impassive, his eyes revealed deep respect. Back then, his wife and child had died in an accident, and he had been degraded for a long time because of it, until he met the Venerable Ancient One before him. So now, have you found the answers you so desperately sought? The Ancient One gazed at Caecilius, a strange emotion in his eyes. I'm sorry, Ancient One. I was overwhelmed with grief at the time, which is why I desperately sought a way to resurrect my loved ones. Caecilius's expression was surprisingly calm, as if he had finally shed the deep sorrow at his loved one's passing. However, after your guidance, I've come to terms with this. Magic isn't omnipotent. Even if there were a way to resurrect my loved ones, I'm afraid it would come at an immense cost. My loved one's passing, while accidental, was also destined. Ultimately, no one can defy the laws of the universe. From now on, I will dedicate my life to Camartage, forever protecting Earth's reality from intrusion by beings from other dimensions. As he spoke, Caecilius's expression was filled with undisguised relief. While he still mourned his lost loved ones, he would not violate the laws of nature or use forbidden magic to bring them back. He even vowed to protect Camartage and Earth's reality for the rest of his life. Alright, Master Caecilius, if that's the case, it will be your turn to teach the new mage. Guiye's eyes flickered as he slowly instructed Caecilius. He then turned and re-entered the hall. In the air, Peter, having just left Camartage, slowed down his flight. His mind immersed in the system, he took stock of his recent gains. He had just completed the mission that changed Tony's fate, rewarding him with tens of thousands of points. The system wall had also been successfully opened. Let me see what goodies the wall has in store. Peter was deeply curious about what the system wall contained. He remembered that it seemed to have various Superman templates: Golden Superman template, Supreme Superman template, Thinking Superman template, Silver Superman template, Doomsday Superman template. Holy crap, is the system wall really that impressive? It has almost every template from the comics. At a glance, Peter was captivated by the dazzling array of Superman templates. Unfortunately, the points required are a bit too high. While those powerful Superman templates were tempting enough, they required millions, sometimes even tens of millions, of points. It was simply beyond his reach at that moment. Of course, besides the incredible Superman templates from the comics, there were also some cheaper templates, such as the Welling Superman template, the Reeves Superman template, the Brandon Superman template, the Cage Superman template, the Middle-Aged Superman template, from Superman and Lois, and the weakest, the Henry Superman template. Well, these templates weren't as expensive as the comic templates. Unfortunately, their prices still ranged from hundreds of thousands to millions. The Reeves Superman template, in particular, commanded a price comparable to the comic templates, perhaps due to its ability to reverse Earth's time at superluminal speeds. Another unique template was the Middle-Aged Superman template, which came in two versions, a standard, cheaper version and a pseudo-gold Superman template, priced just like the Reeves Superman template. Ordinary templates also have the potential to evolve into pseudo-gold super, but they need to travel to the sun's core to absorb energy, and there's a chance of failure. The more expensive one should be for the stage after entering the sun's core, when they possess the immense power to separate the two universes. Well, is the system wall reminding me that I'm just a poor idiot who can't afford anything now? Peter was a little disappointed. Seeing so many templates powerful enough to destroy the universe, but not having enough points to purchase them, was a torture. Fortunately, his points weren't completely useless. In addition to Superman's various powerful templates, the system wall also sold various items from the Marvel Universe. Special materials like vibranium, adamantium, Eurometal, Worldbrush, and Yeka metal were all for sale. The prices were surprisingly cheap, the same as gold and sand, only 1 point per kilogram. Other special items, like vibranium shields, Iron Man armor, Thor's hammer, Stormbreaker, Spear of Eternity, and even Infinity Stones, the heart of the universe, and reality modifiers, were also available. Unfortunately, perhaps due to the uniqueness of these items, the prices were much higher than the materials used. A single Thor's hammer costs 50,000 points, and the Infinity Stones cost hundreds of millions. It's simply not worth it. However, with the opening of the store, earning points isn't limited to quests and changing character fates. Points can be earned by rescuing disasters like floods, earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. Even causing disasters can earn points. Well, what if I emulate Thanos and collect the Infinity Stones, destroying the entire universe? Peter didn't dare think any further, fearing he might just do it. Leaving the system store, Peter suddenly remembered that his suit-making quest seemed unsubmitted. Submit the suit-making quest. Peter submitted the quest without hesitation. Congratulations, host. Suit-making quest completed. Reward, Middle-Aged Super Template, regular version. Note, templates can only be merged, not replaced. Damn, why is it just the regular version? If it was the pseudo-gold super template, wouldn't I be on my way? Peter was a little worried. If he was rewarded with a pseudo-gold super, wouldn't he have saved millions of points and taken off immediately? But, never mind. Even a mosquito is still meat. Let's fuse. Peter selected the template to fuse. The next moment, an immense force suddenly emerged within him. This terrifying power increased his original strength by nearly 100-fold. Holy crap! An ordinary template is this powerful? Could it be because he's middle-aged and has been exposed to sunlight for decades? Peter hadn't expected this result. His initially slow speed, barely above the speed of sound, surged to nearly 100 times the speed of sound after the surge of power. If this is in space, would that mean I could exceed the speed of light? Without hesitation, Peter changed direction and hurtled straight into space. The sun, once in space, Peter gazed at the dazzling star, a thought surging within him. He accelerated through space, transforming into a brilliant streak of light, hurtling straight towards the sun. P.S. This chapter has a bit too much information about the system. I'll try to minimize its use in the future. Chapter 70 Awakening the Power of Thunder. The sun, the most massive celestial body in the solar system, is also its only star. Without it, the entire solar system would cease to exist. The billions of humans on Earth, and indeed countless other species, could not afford to lose the sun. Otherwise, the Wandering Earth project might be about to begin. The sun's surface, scorching at thousands of degrees, can destroy almost any material. But today, a brilliant streak of light, traveling through the vast universe at an incredible speed exceeding the speed of light, hurtled straight towards the sun. It then instantly stopped near it. Is this the sun? Although I could see the sun every day on Earth, seeing it up close was far more awe-inspiring than seeing it with my own eyes. The intense solar winds whipped up a powerful ion storm, reaching a height that threatened to touch Peter's body. At this moment, the sun released its purest radiation energy, constantly absorbing into Peter's body. Even the constantly rising golden solar storm seemed to be drawn to Peter's form, lingering around him and pouring immense energy into him. At that moment, every cell in Peter's body seemed to come alive, beating like a heart. These incredibly active cells continuously absorbed the sun's energy, causing Peter's strength, already skyrocketing 100-fold since the template fusion, to surge even further. In less than an hour, Peter felt his cells finally feel satisfied for the first time. Yet, the sun still held an unwavering attraction for Peter, as if beckoning him to plunge into its core. At that moment, Peter gazed at the sun so close, a hint of hesitation in his eyes. Maybe next time. Ultimately, Peter abandoned the daring idea of plunging into the sun's core. He turned and headed towards the universe, moving even faster than before, transforming into a streak of light. Far away in Asgard, Heimdall continued to diligently guard the Rainbow Bridge. His special eyes watched the 9 realms, exploring any special events within them. Suddenly, he remembered the new god of Midgard, who had defeated Thor, crushed Mjolnir, and even driven Odin away. His eyes flickered, a hint of hesitation. But the next moment, his expression firmed, and he turned his gaze toward Midgard. How is this possible? In such a short time? He's become so powerful. However, the moment he tried to look at the new god of Earth, he was instantly rebounded by a blinding light. Even with the strongest eyes in the 9 realms, the intense light stung his eyes, causing them to sting. It took several minutes for his eyes to gradually recover. However, he dared not set his eyes on the new god of Midgard again. That guy has become so powerful in such a short time. Does Thor really have a chance of defeating him and washing away his humiliation? At that moment, Heimdall couldn't help but wonder if even Thor, the son of Odin, could possibly defeat that terrifying being. As he pondered this, Heimdall's gaze unconsciously drifted toward the place where Thor was exiled. The instant he saw it, he was greeted by an immense tree. Its dense branches seemed to obscure the entire 9 realms. The branches extending from the trunk vanished into the void, their ends indistinct, making it impossible to discern its full extent. As his gaze shifted, he soon spotted a familiar figure beneath the world tree. However, his legs had been switched with his head, and he had used vines from the world tree to bind his legs. Throwing himself beneath it. Your Highness Thor, have you not awakened the power of thunder within you yet? Heimdall had previously held great confidence in his friend, the god of thunder. He believed that even without Mjolnir, he could, through his own powerful will, fuse the blood of Thor and awaken the power of thunder. But after that first glance, he suddenly realized that Thor's potential palled in comparison to that terrifying figure. He had been observing Thor throughout his exile. He was found to have been depressed for a while, then, for some unknown reason, collapsed beneath the world tree. However, the world tree was unlike any other plant. Falling beneath it required an immensely strong will, and no ordinary person could possibly do so. Even with the physique of an Asgardian god, Thor only managed to hold out for less than a minute the first time, his will nearly breaking under the pressure. However, as Thor continued to try, his duration grew longer and longer. Heimdall could clearly sense Thor's growing willpower. Until today, Thor had been able to hold out for a full 4 hours. However, today, Heimdall noticed something different about Thor. Is this a sign of the awakening of the power of thunder? Faint flashes of electricity suddenly appeared on the body that collapsed beneath the world tree. As time passed, the flashes grew brighter, flowing continuously through his body. Thor, is he finally awakening the true power of thunder? At that moment, Heimdall, Thor's dearest friend, was genuinely happy for him. Suddenly, Thor's eyes, which had been tightly closed, fluttered open. However, instead of the original pupils within, 2 gleaming silver lights shone. The next moment, the dazzling lightning swirling around Thor erupted with immense power. The lightning instantly tore free the vines of the world tree that bound his feet. Thor's body was completely freed from the world tree and plummeted to the ground. Thud. Midway through his fall, Thor abruptly turned his body, landing gracefully on one knee. Great! I did it! I finally truly awakened the power of thunder. Slowly rising, Thor gazed at the brilliant lightning lingering in his hands, and burst into laughter. Heimdall, witnessing the entire scene, shared Thor's excitement. Without hesitation, he opened the rainbow bridge and brought Thor back to Asgard. Heimdall? Did you see that? I did it. I really did it. Thor, newly returned to Asgard, stretched out his arms, shrouded in the power of thunder, to show his best friend, Heimdall. Crack. Thick, dark clouds suddenly gathered in the usually peaceful sky of Asgard, and a flash of lightning suddenly erupted, illuminating the entirety of Asgard. This rebellious son, this time, he finally didn't disappoint me. Atop the magnificent hall, Odin, clad in golden armor, clutching the spear of eternity, felt the sudden thunderbolt, and his expression, which had been barely concealed, instantly vanished. That fool actually did it. However, beneath the hall, Loki's expression suddenly changed. He had hoped to take advantage of Thor's absence to reclaim the throne of Asgard. However, he still fell short. Heimdall, come with me to see my father. I need to tell him the good news. Thor, now as excited as a child, beckoned Heimdall to go see Odin. And that fellow? This time, I must defeat him and wash away the humiliation. Then, as if remembering something, his expression grew resolute. No need, Thor. I believe His Majesty the God King already knows everything. Besides, His Majesty the God King once instructed me that after you awaken your thunder power, you should return to Nidave and forge a new weapon. Heimdall's excitement gradually faded, and before Thor could refuse, he once again opened the rainbow bridge. A beam of light engulfed Thor's body, instantly gushing towards Nidave, the home of the dwarves. Chapter 71 Dinner at Stellar Technology. A few days later, one evening, after a period of preparation, the new company Peter had orchestrated behind the scenes was finally officially launched. However, due to the hasty establishment, they hadn't had time to build their own dedicated building. They had to rent a building in downtown New York to temporarily serve as their office. With Tony's friendly sponsorship, the financial problem was easily solved. Furthermore, Dr. Otto was rumored to have an unexplained connection to Superman. Now that he had founded a company, even the government wouldn't dare to stop him. This was precisely the reason the company was so quickly established. With the company's establishment, Dr. Otto also demonstrated his extraordinary business talent. Shortly after the company's founding, he planned to hold a lavish dinner, inviting elites from all walks of life, including some well-known wealthy individuals and numerous media outlets. This was intended to establish the company's reputation from the outset. Naturally, Peter, the man behind the company, was invited to the dinner. However, the reason for his invitation was Dr. Otto's intern, Spider-Gwen. Okay, about me, the boss behind the scenes, needing a classmate's invitation to attend my own company's dinner. This is a joke comparable to the chairman being stopped by his own security. Peter, dressed in a retro suit, slowly stepped out of Uncle Ben's classic car. As Peter exited the car, Gwen, not far away in a beautiful evening gown, instantly noticed him and walked towards him with a smile. Keep going, Peter. Uncle Ben glanced at the pretty girl approaching them and gave Peter an encouraging look. Then, without a hint of being a third wheel, he drove off. Parker, you're finally here. Was that Uncle Ben just now? Gwen soon approached Peter, looking at the departing classic car with a hint of curiosity. Yes, Uncle Ben brought me here. Alright, remember to give him my regards when you get back. Now, let's go inside, Gwen said, leading Peter through the bustling crowd outside and into the banquet hall. As for the scene of being harassed by security guards as described in the novel, it didn't happen. It seems like quite a few people are attending. After entering the hall, Peter realized that the crowds here weren't much smaller than outside. However, outside were mostly reporters from smaller media outlets who hadn't received an invitation, hunkering down hoping to catch some big news. Inside, everyone was a distinguished group of people, high-ranking politicians, members of the mainstream media, and heads of prominent companies. Of course, our newly established company isn't just any small business, Gwen explained quietly, seemingly privy to some inside information. I heard the mastermind behind our company is none other than Mr. Superman. How did you know that? Peter was curious. Did Otto even tell his students that? Of course I guessed. Gwen looked nervous, as if she were about to reveal some catastrophic secret, But suddenly a bright smile broke out. Haha, just kidding. I asked my professor about it, and he scolded me, telling me not to believe such rumors, but I think it might not be a rumor, Gwen said as she led Peter into the center of the hall. In reality, this rumor had already spread throughout the upper class in all walks of life. Otherwise, they couldn't fathom how Dr. Otto, once a relatively unknown scientist with some talent, could suddenly transform himself into someone with enormous financial backing and build this company so quickly. At the dinner, Peter saw many familiar faces, like Tony's personal secretary, Pepper Potts, and the scientists he'd kidnapped and their friends who had chosen to stay with the company and continue their research. It's worth noting that, after Peter's previous inquiries, only 5 of the dozen or so people he'd kidnapped had chosen to be sent back home, as their previous residences were too far from New York. The remaining scientists, including Reed, Zhao Halen, and Selvig, had all chosen to join the company. After all, it's good to be under the shade of a tree. What company could have more potential than the one founded by Superman? Soon, as the clock ticked to 7 in the evening, the dinner officially began. Peter sat in a secluded corner seat, watching with interest as Dr. Otto slowly walked onto the stage and began his pre-dinner speech. Of course, sitting there wasn't discrimination against him because he was a poor kid, it was Peter's specific request. After all, the other tables were filled with elites from various fields, and their true purpose wasn't just to eat and drink. Rather, they were here to investigate this company's background and, in turn, to seek out leaders from other industries to explore opportunities for collaboration. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you very much for attending the dinner hosted by Star Technology Industries. Star Technology, as our name suggests, is committed to exploring the truth of the universe. Our journey is to the stars and the sea. Dr. Otto, dressed in a luxurious suit, slowly walked onto the stage, his 4 metal tentacles dancing gently behind him like a nimble octopus. It's worth noting that Dr. Otto's original simple suppression chip had long been replaced, making it virtually impossible for him to be controlled by the tentacle's artificial intelligence due to the chip's damage. Dr. Otto, what is your company's main business? As Dr. Otto delivered his impassioned speech, a reporter suddenly stood up and asked. Our company's business scope is very broad, ranging from the energy internet to basic materials and nanotechnology. We will explore further in the future, of course. Our main focus right now is healthcare. Healthcare? Isn't that a bit of a leap of faith? As Otto spoke, everyone present was a little surprised. If they were in the energy industry, it would seem perfectly normal to everyone. After all, they still remembered the artificial star that illuminated the New York night sky a few days ago. But now, they've suddenly changed their minds and said they want to focus on healthcare. Excuse me, Dr. Otto, what do you mean by healthcare? The reporter continued politely. As we all know, there are countless disabled people in the world, and countless people suffer from various diseases, and we will soon launch an advanced nano-biomedical chamber and a special drug that can regenerate severed limbs. We've named it the regeneration drug. If Dr. Otto, without any background, had said this before, he would have been dead on the street the next day, his death unknown. But now, with a powerful Superman as his backing, Dr. Otto's face exuded immense confidence. A potion that regenerates severed limbs? How is that even possible? Everyone present was instantly stunned by Dr. Otto's words, and the once quiet dinner party erupted in a clamor. Most people couldn't believe that someone could actually regenerate a severed limb. If this technology were real, it would undoubtedly receive the highest honor in science. Excuse me, Dr. Otto, are you planning to cooperate with our military? Suddenly, a general with shoulders as strong as a star stood up and asked Dr. Otto excitedly. Unfortunately, everyone, look, what is that? It looks like a demon wearing a green mask. Just as Dr. Otto was about to refuse cooperation with the military, chaos erupted outside. Boom. The next moment, a huge explosion erupted. Oh no. Someone's attacking the scene. Quickly organize an evacuation. A figure wearing a demonic mask, riding a strangely shaped flying vehicle, suddenly appeared above the scene. Chapter 72 Dr. Octopus vs. Green Goblin. With the Green Goblin's sudden appearance, the scene instantly descended into chaos. Ha ha ha! A chilling laugh echoed through the air, making the fleeing crowd feel as if they were being targeted by a madman. Damn it, you dared to ruin my dinner party. Dr. Otto was a weak scientist on his own. But with the powerful metal tentacles wielding him, he was a Dr. Octopus who could rival Spider-Man. At that moment, Watching the sudden appearance of the madman disrupt the dinner, his once benign expression was now filled with intense anger. "Hey, you pesky bastards, go to hell!" Ignoring the fleeing civilians, the Green Goblin, on his flying skateboard, instantly reached the military camp. Even with his alter ego, hatred for the military still permeated his heart. Fueled by this intense hatred, the Green Goblin unhesitatingly launched a round pumpkin bomb at the high-ranking military officials. Suddenly, a metal tentacle darted out from the distance. With impeccable precision, it snatched the pumpkin bomb from mid-air and hurled it back toward the Green Goblin. "Who's stopping me?" The Green Goblin, startled, dodged the returned pumpkin bomb with a deft, hawk-like gaze. Boom! The pumpkin bomb exploded in the air, a dazzling burst of flame. Ah! Run! The nearby explosion instantly ignited even more chaos. Countless people scrambled to escape this dangerous place. "Damn you! I'll make you pay." Dr. Otto's expression deepened with fury. A perfectly executed dinner, a chance to establish their company's reputation, had been ruined by this sudden appearance. He simply could not tolerate this. The next moment, the enraged Otto transformed into Dr. Octopus. The metal tentacles behind him gradually extended as he realized what was happening, slowly lifting his body high into the air, directly facing the Green Goblin, who was standing on the aircraft in the air. The next moment, two more tentacles rapidly extended, grabbing the Green Goblin in the air. A fierce madness flashed in the Green Goblin's eyes. Just as the rapidly extending tentacles were about to grab him, he exerted force with his foot, instantly carrying the aircraft away, carrying him a distance. The metal tentacle barely brushed past him, darting behind him. "Hey!" Suddenly, the Green Goblin burst into another terrifying laugh. Then, he actually grabbed the metal tentacle directly. After using the potion, a force of over 10 tons suddenly erupted, as if trying to pull Dr. Octopus in front of him. "Wow, this guy has great strength." The moment they made contact, Otto was astonished to discover that this guy was not just mentally insane, but also possessed a terrifying strength in his body that was inhuman and could even withstand his metal tentacles. And Dr. Otto would not be defeated so easily. The two tentacles beneath his feet dug deep into the ground, resisting the goblin's pull. Meanwhile, the single remaining tentacle above him once again extended itself at breakneck speed, reaching towards the goblin in the air. Bang! Hit. This time, perhaps because he hadn't dodged quickly, Dr. Otto's other tentacle was lucky enough to send the creature flying. It even broke free from the aircraft beneath his feet and plummeted to the ground. Hey! Just as Dr. Otto was about to retract his tentacle and pursue the falling goblin, he suddenly heard another sinister laugh. Something was suddenly off. The aircraft in the air was instantly summoned, successfully catching the goblin as he was about to fall. Oh no, that's a bomb. The next moment, Dr. Otto saw that within the tentacle he had retracted, there was a pumpkin bomb. It was probably too late to remove it now. Be careful. Suddenly, a voice came from the other side. The next moment, a silvery white thread darted through the air, precisely catching the pumpkin bomb tucked within its tentacle. Then, with a sudden force, it yanked the bomb free. However, the recoil sent it flying towards Spider-Man. "Get out of the way," Dr. Otto anxiously shouted, watching Spider-Man suddenly appear to assist him. In reality, Gwen's body shuddered the moment the pumpkin bomb approached. Then, she suddenly shot a strand of thread to the side, twisting her body with all her might. Boom! With a violent explosion, Gwen couldn't completely avoid a blast, and was sent flying by the shockwave, landing heavily on the ground. "Hey, 2 against 1, you're playing with no moral principles. I'm not playing with you anymore." The Green Goblin, observing the chaos he'd caused from the air, excitedly prepared to flee. But before he did, he instantly unloaded all the pumpkin bombs he had brought with him. His hands were open, revealing a dozen pumpkin bombs tucked between his fingers. He then threw the bomb in his right hand toward the fleeing crowd on the ground to his left. The bomb in his left hand, however, was thrown toward the crowd to his right. The next moment, he turned and calmly departed in his flying vehicle. No, Gwen and Dr. Otto watched helplessly as the Green Goblin departed. He, however, raced relentlessly toward the nearest pumpkin bomb landing point, attempting to prevent it from hitting the crowd. Gwen was fortunate; she could quickly fire off several strands of silk, accurately catching the scattered pumpkin bombs. But Dr. Otto was no match. With only 4 tentacles, he couldn't completely stop over 10 bombs. "Ah! I don't want to die." Watching the rapidly falling bombs, the people on the ground were practically paralyzed, crouching with their heads in their hands, screaming in panic. Just as the bombs were about to explode, taking dozens of lives, the pumpkin bombs in the air suddenly vanished. What? The Green Goblin, attempting to escape, suddenly felt his vision blur, and then an oppressive figure appeared. Sorry, it's not 2 against 1, it's 3 against 1, great, it's Superman. We're saved. At that moment, someone saw the majestic figure in the sky. It was none other than humanity's hero, Superman. Meanwhile, Peter, with a calm expression, gazed at the Green Goblin before him. He slowly opened his hands, revealing a glittering array of pumpkin bombs. Beep, beep. The death beeping from the pumpkin bombs grew increasingly rapid. A flicker of fear flashed in the Green Goblin's eyes. He frantically tried to maneuver the aircraft backward, out of the range of the pumpkin bombs. But it was too late. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions erupted, sending balls of fire blazing like fireworks in the air. Even the Green Goblin, engulfed by the blast of over a dozen pumpkin bombs, couldn't escape unscathed. He was flung back and landed heavily on the ground. His mask had been shattered, leaving only a small fragment hanging, revealing the face of Norman Osborn beneath. Is it you? Mr. Norman Osborn? At this moment, some people who knew him looked at him in disbelief. Mr. Superman, I was wrong. That was not me at all. I was controlled. Suddenly, Osborn took off the half of the mask on his face, knelt directly on the ground, and apologized to Peter in the air. However, without almost anyone noticing, the aircraft in the air actually accelerated slowly, and a sharp blade extended from the front, attacking Peter from behind. Sorry, your acting is so poor. Peter's eyes gradually emitted a red light, and the next moment, hot vision gushed out. The dazzling light made everyone present close their eyes. The flight lost control and fell directly to the ground. P.S. Please read, recommend and vote for me. Thank you everyone. Chapter 73, Observing the Cosmic Storm? You're too small-minded. Shocked. The true identity of the madman who attacked the dinner has been revealed. It's him. Osborn Industries has been shut down by the government, and numerous illegal activities have been exposed. A 7.2 magnitude earthquake struck an Asian island nation, affecting over 1 million people. The next day, the New York media was flooded with news about the previous night's dinner. With the Green Goblin's true identity revealed, it was none other than Norman Osborn, chairman of Osborn Industries. In less than a day, the once mighty Osborn Industries collapsed. Countless shareholders sold their shares at a low price, but no one was willing to buy. With Osborn Industries' government seizure and forced closure, the incident came to a temporary end. However, its repercussions continued. Even those who had previously been skeptical of any connection between stellar technology and Superman became completely convinced of the rumor. More importantly, everyone witnessed Superman's wrath firsthand. They also understood that reality is not the idyllic world of comics. The real Superman doesn't adhere to his ridiculous no-killing policy. This, in turn, made those in the upper echelons of society even more cautious about all matters related to Superman. Cleveland volcano, located in the Aleutian Islands of central Alaska, suddenly became unusually active today. Lava within the volcano swirls violently, like a boiling oil pan. Thick volcanic ash erupts from the crater first, with overwhelming force, covering the sky like a thick, dark cloud. The immense pressure causes the surrounding mountains to collapse, and the thick ash, like an avalanche, surges toward the surrounding area. Oh no! It's an eruption. Everyone, run! As thick volcanic ash blankets the sky, residents of the town closest to the volcano realize the severity of the situation and begin fleeing without hesitation. However, accompanied by a roar like the roar of a fire god, the crater begins to spew forth glowing, hot lava. The once dark sky is instantly painted a fiery crimson. Humanity, facing nature, appears insignificant in this apocalyptic spectacle. Everyone stops running, staring blankly at the sky blazing red. They knew it was too late to escape. Look, what's that? It's Superman. Great! Superman's here to save us. Just as everyone felt imminently doomed by the sudden eruption, a figure streaked across the sky, charging towards the flames that obscured the heavens. Can he succeed? This question crossed everyone's mind. After all, in the face of the wrath of nature, humanity seemed so insignificant, even Superman. Please, you must succeed, but they preferred to believe in a miracle. A volcanic eruption? No big deal. Peter reached the top of the crater and unleashed his signature freezing breath into the crater without hesitation. With a force 100 times greater than before, Peter's freezing breath was now even more powerful. In an instant, a shimmering, crystal-clear mist of freezing air completely enveloped the massive, erupting volcano below. A crackling sound accompanied the unpleasant sensation. The scorching lava cooled almost instantly, freezing into a solid mass. In less than 10 seconds, the erupting volcano had transformed into a frozen mountain covered in ice. Great! Superman succeeded, amidst everyone's excited shouts and the buzz of a system notification in his head announcing a massive point gain. Peter nodded in satisfaction and soared into the sky. A figure flew into the top floor of the temporary Stellar Technology building in New York City without a trace of disguise. Since everyone knew about it, Peter decided to drop the pretense. Actually, I'm the CEO. I'm laying it all out. Entering the building, Peter walked straight to the sealed laboratory without hesitation. Mr. Superman, you're here. As Peter entered the lab, Reed, who was conducting a special experiment, paused and greeted him. How is it going? Can PIM particles actually reduce the size of the portal? Peter nodded in response, then looked at the massive portal device in the lab and asked curiously. Reed had previously proposed the idea of using PIM particles to shrink the portal, which reminded him of the portal gun used by Rick in a certain cartoon. Therefore, Peter was very supportive of Reed's experimentation. Of course, everything had to be conducted under his supervision. Otherwise, Peter feared one day he'd open the lab door and be greeted by a swarm of zombies. Mr. Superman, this experiment is very complicated. The portal, unlike an artificial star, can't be shrunk by ordinary means. As for your idea of making it look like a toy gun, I'm afraid it seems a bit far-fetched now. Reed's face was troubled, hoping to dissuade Peter from making the portal into a toy gun. Ahem, that was just a passing remark, Peter explained awkwardly. Suddenly, the lab door opened again. Reed, look. That cosmic storm is about to. Hello, Mr. Superman. A burly bald man suddenly ran in and excitedly called out to Reed. But he was only halfway through when he saw Peter in the lab. Mr. Superman, this is my good friend from childhood, Ben Graham. He's now a member of the company. Reed, meeting Peter's curious gaze, quickly introduced him. Hello, Mr. Graham. Mr. Superman, you can just call me Ben. Thank you for giving us this great opportunity. Ben seemed thrilled. Okay, Ben, what are those cosmic storms you were talking about? Peter nodded with a smile, then asked curiously. Let me explain, Mr. Superman, before you kidnapped and recruited me, cosmic storms were exactly what I was researching. At that time, I predicted that a cosmic storm would pass through the solar system and come very close to Earth in a few months, so I wanted to observe the cosmic storm up close, perhaps to uncover the secrets of human origins. Unfortunately, no one supported me at the time, until I met you. At this moment, Reed's face was filled with regret. No one could have imagined that being kidnapped by Superman would give him the opportunity to realize his long-cherished dream. So, Ben, what about that cosmic storm you were talking about? The honest Ben glanced at Reed, then, after he nodded, he stopped hesitating. Mr. Superman, our measurements indicate that the cosmic storm is approaching the solar system and will likely reach Earth in less than a month. Reed's eyes lit up with excitement, and he couldn't help but continue. So, it seems we'll soon be able to take a spaceship into space and observe the mysterious cosmic storm up close. Spaceship? Simple observation, that's too small, Peter suddenly spoke, interrupting Reed's excitement. Superman, what do you mean? What's the point of just using a spaceship for simple observation? Why don't we use this time to build a massive space station and capture the cosmic storm directly? Peter's confident words instantly froze Reed and Ben's expressions. Chapter 74, Nano-armor? No, this is a magical weapon. Build a space station? Capture a cosmic storm. The former seemed relatively easy. After all, they had Superman. Traveling to and from space didn't require the massive investment of rockets, just a few rays of sunlight. And they had incredible technology like portals, far more convenient than a space elevator. However, capturing a cosmic storm wasn't so easy. Mr. Superman, it's not that we're narrow-minded, it's just that it's a cosmic storm, teeming with terrifying cosmic radiation. Ordinary people would probably, if possible, Reed would naturally want to capture the cosmic storm and observe it like a guinea pig. However, in reality, a cosmic storm isn't a living thing, or even a gas. It's a vast, invisible force of energy and radiation. Resisting and observing it is already incredibly difficult, let alone capturing it. Even if you're Superman, I guess. Reed didn't continue, but his hesitant expression revealed that he had no illusions about Peter being able to capture a cosmic storm. You think I don't understand cosmic storms, but you don't understand Superman. Superman's abilities are never static. Alright, Mr. Superman, since you insist, we naturally have no objections. However, we hope you'll give us the opportunity to observe first, and then proceed with a capture operation. Reed could only fight for his own observation opportunity. Furthermore, if we want to build a space station, in addition to the necessary funding and equipment, you might have to make multiple trips back and forth between Earth and outer space, Reed said somewhat embarrassedly. After all, that would undoubtedly be treating the great Superman like a mere porter. Don't worry, since I proposed the plan, I'll do my best. So, Mr. Superman, what will you name this space station? How about calling it Watchtower? Peter slowly spoke, confirming the name. For the time being, the Watchtower construction project would take priority over other experiments. The company was recruiting personnel and investing funds to build the Watchtower space station on Earth. Peter only needed to complete the construction of the space station, transport it into space, and integrate it into Earth's orbit. As for how he captured the massive cosmic storm, which everyone was very interested in, Peter kept it a secret. Just wait until the cosmic storm truly arrives, then perform in front of everyone. Of course, Peter himself had joined his own company as an intern. After all, he was graduating from high school in a few months, and by then he'd have to consider college. Uncle Ben's gaze and Aunt May's nagging were not easy to bear, even for a superhero. Just after school today, he and Gwen arrived at the company. Who's that? Upon entering, Peter spotted a familiar figure. What's going on? You can't look away from beautiful women. Seeing Peter's sudden daze, Gwen followed his gaze, her smile instantly turning cold. No, she just looked familiar, Peter replied calmly, gazing at the sultry figure with striking red hair not far away. Why? Do you want me to get her contact information for you? Gwen said sourly. Never mind, let's go. After a quick glance, Peter dismissed the allure and headed for the elevator. Her name is Natalie. She's here to discuss a partnership with us on behalf of Stark Industries. Following Peter into the elevator, Gwen hesitated for a moment before addressing him. Gwen, I'm really not interested in her, Peter said calmly. Natalie? That should be Natasha, right? Peter naturally recognized the renowned Black Widow. But she's already infiltrated Stark Industries. I wonder if she's gotten the news that Tony's headed to Kamartaj. I imagine that person would be quite impressed if they knew Tony had abandoned technology to pursue the ethereal power of magic. Peter knew that in the original plot, Natasha's infiltration into Stark Industries wasn't just to determine Tony's health, but more importantly, to learn about his armor technology. Of course, she was also testing Tony's eligibility to join the Avengers. Unfortunately, their plans might be in vain now, as Tony was still toiling away on magic at Kamartaj. Thinking of Tony, who was learning magic, Peter couldn't help but use his super hearing to eavesdrop on Tony in Kamartaj, overcoming the vast distance. In the main hall of Kamartaj, the Ancient One, quietly meditating, seemed to sense something and suddenly opened his eyes, then smiled and sank back into his meditation. At that moment, Peter saw Tony, clad in monk's robes, battling the impassive Caecilius. Hey, old buddy, even though I'm new here, I can still defeat you. Though only a few days had passed, Tony, a genius, had already mastered the basics of magic with remarkable proficiency. He held his hands horizontally in front of him and slowly separated them. Instantly, a magical whip gleaming with golden light appeared in his hands. HMPH, rookie apprentice, you still have a lot to learn, Caecilius replied with a cold expression. The next moment, with a single wave of his hand, a nearly meter-long staff suddenly flew towards him from a distance. Grasping the staff in his hand, Caecilius slowly swung it. Amidst a shimmering golden light, the staff suddenly grew a significant length, lashing out like a whip at Tony, who was not far away. You're cheating, Tony cried out in anger, rolling awkwardly to the side to avoid a sudden attack. How, your enemies won't play fair with you. Seeing Tony dodge the attack, Caecilius rushed towards him without hesitation. The golden whip in his hand suddenly transformed into a long staff and slashed directly at Tony, who was lying on the ground. Damn it, you have no moral integrity. Tony had no time to get up, and could only hold the magic whip horizontally above his head to face the attack. Bang! The magic whip successfully blocked Caecilius' attack. But Tony didn't have time to rejoice. The staff suddenly transformed into a long whip again, slashing at his back with such force that a knife-like cut was cut through his monk's robe. SHH, that hurts. Feeling the searing pain in his back, Tony was filled with rage. The next moment, he swung his magic whip, wrapping it around Caecilius' ankle in front of him. Lie down. With a roar, Tony yanked the whip hard. The immense force caused Caecilius to stagger, and he fell backward. But before Tony could rejoice, he saw Caecilius' other foot gleam with a golden glow, like a pair of small wings. The next moment, not only did it stop him from falling, but it even gained even greater power, kicking straight at Tony. Damn! Why are there so many strange things on this guy? Tony quickly dispelled the magic whip and used the magic shield to block it. However, he had only been practicing magic for so long. The shield barely formed when Caecilius' kick shattered it, dissipating in a golden glow. Then, without losing momentum, he kicked him directly in the face, sending him flying several meters. Let me teach you another lesson. This is called a magical weapon. By injecting magical energy into it, you can harness the immense power of the magical weapon. Fuck, don't hit someone in the face. At this moment, Tony seemed to be furious and actually activated his nano armor directly. He then stood up, and the nanoparticles in his hand transformed into a baseball bat, rushing straight towards Caecilius. Facing the aggressive Tony, Caecilius' expression remained unchanged. At the moment Tony was about to hide him, he opened a portal. At the same time, a golden portal appeared in the air, and Tony fell from it. Suddenly, a golden light flashed on Tony's armor, just like the golden wings that had flashed on Caecilius' feet before. Slowly flapping, Tony's body hovered in the air. I understand. You said to inject magical energy into the magical weapon, then now, my armor should also be considered a magical weapon. Chapter 75, Casting the Super Monarch Artifact. Nidave, the Kingdom of the Dwarves. Built entirely around a dazzling neutron star, a vast ring resembling a Dyson sphere, is home to hundreds of dwarves. They possess the most powerful forging techniques of the 9 realms, forging artifacts renowned throughout the universe. Unfortunately, the dwarves were conquered long ago by the powerful Odin, and Nidave became one of his territories. The dwarves are now forced to serve Asgard. In return, they enjoy the protection of Asgard and Odin. This ensured a long period of peace between Nidave and the dwarves. Suddenly, above the peaceful and tranquil Nidave ring, a multicolored beam of light descended. It quickly dissipated, leaving behind only a sturdy figure. He wore armor, but its silver armor was still stained with lingering blood. Chains bound him to a massive skull. Atop it, 2 long, demonic horns adorned the skull. Brother Etri, I'm back. It was Thor, son of Odin, who stepped out of the Rainbow Bridge, roaring excitedly to the dwarfs. Thor, you actually defeated Surtur. Soon, a dwarf, over 3 meters tall, stalked up to Thor. With a look of disbelief, he gazed at the demon skull Thor carried on his back. Of course. I've awakened my divine power, and no foe can stop me. Thor carelessly dropped Surtur's skull onto the ground with a thud. I wonder how this fellow brought about Ragnarok? He's so weak. Even now, Thor found it hard to believe that the prophecy of Ragnarok had been caused by this very being. By the way, I'll give you this hammer back. It's far inferior to my Mjolnir and doesn't wield it at all. Thor then stopped dwelling on Ragnarok, no longer believing in this ridiculous prophecy. He slowly handed the silver hammer to the dwarf. His eyes were filled with disdain. He preferred his own Mjolnir to other hammers, but it was a pity. Of course, that hammer was one of my most outstanding creations, Eitri said with a similar look of regret. But don't worry, Thor. Since you've truly retrieved Surtur's skull, I will use my masterful forging skills to help you forge another powerful royal artifact. Its power will even surpass the eternal lance wielded by your father, the god King Odin. As he comforted Thor, Eitri's eyes revealed intense excitement and anticipation. As forged masters, the more powerful the artifact they crafted, the greater the pride. However, under Odin's protection, they rarely had the opportunity to forge sufficiently powerful weapons. That was until Thor's sudden arrival a few days ago. With Odin's permission, they prepared to forge a new weapon. There were no restrictions, even the sovereign artifacts belonging exclusively to the king of Asgard could be forged. This undoubtedly filled Eitri with instant excitement. He immediately decided to forge a long-awaited sovereign weapon for Thor, called the Storm Axe. However, he quickly abandoned this plan. The Storm Axe was indeed immensely powerful, rivaling even Odin's Eternal Lance in power. However, there was no limit to weapon forging, and Eitri's lifelong pursuit was to push the boundaries of weaponry. This present moment presented the perfect opportunity. Surtur's skull, combined with the Eternal Flame, slowly picking up the skull from the ground, Eitri suppressed his intense excitement and slowly approached the massive forge. The power of giants and flames, the fusion of thunder and storm, this unborn weapon will possess devastating power. Arriving at the massive forge, Eitri tossed the massive skull into the forge without hesitation. "Brothers, open the forge." A moment later, Eitri shouted to the other dwarves. Instantly, several dwarves worked together to activate the forge's hitting mechanism. The rings surrounding the neutron star began to slowly rotate and gradually close together. With a swish, the central neutron star erupted with an incredibly dazzling light, and a beam of scorching heat instantly erupted from it. Through the ring's central mechanism, the massive forge surrounding the neutron star was instantly ignited. Even from a distance, Thor felt the sudden surge of scorching heat. This is the dwarven forging technique. Observing it all with fascination, Thor looked forward to the weapon he would soon acquire. Go for it. As the neutron star's massive energy beams continued to pour into the forge, the intense heat generated seared Surtur's skull within. However, perhaps due to its inherent fire element, even at the terrifying temperatures within the forge, Surtur's skull showed no signs of melting. "Quick, put the Uru metal in." Following the command of the dwarf king Eitri, several dwarves brought several pieces of silver Uru metal and tossed them into the forge without hesitation. Even though Uru is one of the hardest metals in the universe, the intense heat melts it almost instantly upon entering the forge, transforming it into a pool of liquid metal like magma. Now, put in the witch's feather and the giant's arrowhead. They will give the forged weapon the ability to recognize its master and lock onto its enemy. Eitri continued to shout. A member of the tribe, who had been waiting nearby, instantly produced a silver-white feather and a broken arrowhead and placed them into the forge. Both items also melted instantly upon entering the forge. However, as they melted, a strange vibration was visible as they merged with the liquid metal in the forge. Soon, all the forging steps were completed, but Surtur's skull still remained unmelted by the intense heat. "Keep raising the temperature," Eitri shouted anxiously. "Chief, we can't raise the temperature any further, or our forge might," another dwarf nearby tried to warn him. "Listen to me. Turn it up to maximum power, even if it means destroying the forge." Eitri's face was determined, as if he had already gone mad. The next moment, an even hotter beam of light erupted from the neutron star, so intense that even the outer walls of the massive forge began to glow a dazzling fiery red. "Chief, great! It's finally melted," a dwarf tried to warn Eitri, but he saw Eitri staring at the scene in the forge, his expression filled with excitement. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.